A lot of fullback down there in Notre Dame. He's getting some fullback looks.
Thank
God.
I
like him at fullback.
I love it.
He gets a lot. He's getting fullback looks. So
thank God. And Alex knows why I'm so excited. Because in my eyes, Giovanni Ricci, who has been the fullback for the Carolina Panthers the last couple of years, is the worst one in football. Alrighty, welcome everybody back to another video here on the channel. If you don't know who I am by now, my name is David. I also go by Miller Football, and I'm currently doing a series here on this channel where I'm talking about all 32 NFL teams in depth with fans of those teams. And if it's not apparent by the hat on the head of the gentleman below me, we're going to be talking about the Carolina Panthers today. And obviously, as a Chicago Bears fan, I can't provide as in-depth of insight as you'd probably want to see on the team. So I had to enlist a pair of Panthers fans here. To my right, we have Alex, who was on the show last year. And then below me, we have the man, the myth, the legend, VitaVanPelt. So before we jump into this, fellas, I got to ask, how are we doing today?
Good. I'm good, man. How you doing, Alex?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it. I do want to... This is going to kind of bring the mood down, and I apologize for that, but I have to bring this up. If you watched this video last year on my other channel, which was the Ball Nowhere podcast, I've since moved on from that. Me and Alex were joined by a good friend of mine named Vic. And Vic, massive Panthers fan. Unfortunately, Vic passed away during the NFL season and obviously couldn't join us here today. But at the top of the description, I am going to have a link to a GoFundMe that his family set up to, raise money for different things. So if you can find it in your heart to donate, I'm not saying you have to, but if you have a little bit extra money laying around, you want to help out a family who lost a son, I would really appreciate it. And I had to bring up my boy Vic. I know he would love where the Panthers are at right now. I'm sure seeing the Panthers take Bryce Young first overall would have been great for him. So shout out to him. Rest in peace. But moving on to some more positive stuff off of that, talking about the Panthers as a whole. Obviously, this was a really big offseason for the Carolina Panthers. They went out, they traded for the number 1 overall pick, gave up arguably their most talented player to do so, and also brought in a brand new head coach who I'm pretty high on myself. And we'll talk about him in a moment. But just to start things off, I got to ask, how are we feeling about the trade for the first overall pick in hindsight? Obviously, we're all connected to it in one way or another. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on the other side of it.
I love it, to be honest. I think you needed a quarterback. You weren't going to get one at 9. So go get the guy. I'm happy that they kept Brian Burns. So if it was between Burns and DJ Moore, give up DJ Moore. It's way easier to replace a wide receiver than it is to replace a defensive end. So that's my thoughts on it.
I was a little kind of shocked, like when the news instantly dropped. Like I was real shocked because like every detail came out and then DJ Moore came out last. You were like, oh, there's a player attached to this somewhere. And for us, or for me, in the moment, except I'm with Alex. I think of the people who I would have been willing to give up, he was the one I was willing to get rid of. You guys took the quarterback I wanted a couple years ago, Justin Fields, right? We sat back and everything at that, like this is 2 tales of coaching staffs. We were okay, what quarterback is going to fall to us that we could potentially take? We didn't take the guy. And then this year, and look at kind of what Carolina did since then. Bridgewater, Baker, Sam. He was just kind of like, we got tired of Matt Rule wouldn't have done no good to any of those guys anyway. He really wouldn't have, man. But we were just tired of the cycle, man. So I was just happy that Fitterer, right, was like, hey, you know what? If we're going to lose our jobs, we might as well go get the guy that we want to get and risk it for it, man. Because we were sick of probably having to get ready to pick up somebody that the fan base did not want, man. So, like, in the moment, it was shocking, but it was like, it was necessary. We needed it. We were so tired of having to deal with leftover quarterbacks, man. We want to get our own guys. So I was happy with it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is a rare example, and I know NFL fans hate when people say this, but I think both sides won. Like, I don't think there is.
It's not sexy to say that. It's not sexy to say that. Right. It's not sexy to say that, man. You want to yell fleece. You want somebody to get got. It's not sexy to say, hey, both teams got what they needed.
Yeah, exactly. Like I know Bears fans are very vocal and very loud, and quite frankly kind of obnoxious. I'm not going to shy away from that. And there's like a rivalry that's brewed between the two fan bases, at least on Twitter. I don't take part in that. I think it's really stupid. Like I said, I think everybody got what they needed. The Bears have a young quarterback. They need to go out and get him a number one weapon because we've seen what that's done for guys like Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, and DJ Moore can absolutely be that. The Carolina Panthers, like Vita pointed out, haven't had a quarterback in God knows how long, right? Since Cam Newton at this point. And they needed to go out and get a guy. I think Bryce Young is a franchise guy, and we'll talk about him when we get to the draft. But I love the pick. I love the move both ways. You had to give up a lot, but you're jumping up 8 spots to the number one pick for a really good quarterback. Again, both sides won. I think everybody can walk away happy here. And like you said, that's not the sexy answer, but it's the truth. Yeah.
I was very high on Ryan Poles when he got the job as GM, because I got an OG I work with, and he was kind of bringing up a point to me of a lot of the GMs that come out of Kansas City have gone to build pretty well-rounded teams. So, I kind of looked down and said, okay, well, what's he going to? Kind of watch some of the moves he made last year. And then for him to be like, all right, you're going to make your first big move have to be with us. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got rid of Will Crown. Now you have to come get DJ. So, but you're right, man. I felt the trade was necessary on both ends. It really is a win-win for both teams, because they really get to figure out, in your guys' case, like, is Fields the dude who I believe he is? And in our case, like, Frank, man, no excuse. You went out, you got your guy. It's time for both teams to make a move here. So,
for sure.
I love the move for both teams.
Absolutely. And to piggyback off that, speaking of Frank Reich, how do we feel about the hiring of Frank Reich as the head coach?
I love it. I love everything.
I was a Wilkes guy.
Fair.
Okay, so was I, but then when they decided to not go with him, Frank built an ultimate team around him, and I love that more than anything.
Yeah.
Like,
that's true. That's the truth.
Everybody he brought in is perfect for this team and how young they are, and so I really like it. It feels like we did the exact opposite of what we did with Matt Rule. It's like, all right, we got people that know what they're doing now instead of a college guy that just kind of threw into it, and I feel really good about it.
Yeah, so I was a Wilkes guy. I wanted to see him get a shot, but I agree with Alex said. I don't think if Wilkes would have kept the job, I don't think they would have traded up. I don't think this staff would be what the staff is. So I think there's a lot of things that came with Frank that would have not been here if we would have kept Wilkes. So again, it's definitely I believe at the end of the day, for me in the moment, I was upset. But, looking at what the staff looks like now and the moves they made, clearly they had a conviction about something. So yeah, I'm happy right now. I'm happy.
As you should be, honestly. I love the Frank Reich hiring for you guys. I think it was fantastic. He's a guy that I really think gets a lot more shit than he should, especially right now, considering he got fired as the Colts head coach. When in reality, you look at what was going on there. First of all, the power struggle was so apparent with Jim Irsay, because if you went against Irsay, it's curtains. He has no interest in keeping around anybody that doesn't agree with him. And then you look at the fact that Frank Reich's offense is so complex and so reliant on having a really intelligent quarterback, almost like the point guard of the NFL offense is what Frank Reich's looking for. And the entire time he was in Indianapolis, the only QB he had that really fit that was Phillip Rivers, who was way beyond washed at that point in his career. So you give an offensive guy one half okay quarterback and say, go win a Super Bowl. It's not going to happen. So, he got scapegoated in Indy. I love the hiring for the Panthers. Like Vita brought up, I love the group of guys he brought in around him. I think that coaching staff is amazing, and we'll talk about that. But yeah, I think the Panthers absolutely knocked it out of the park. Shout out Steve Wilkes, though. He's a fantastic coach. I love what he did for you guys in the back half of the year. And I think he's going to be a great DC for San Francisco. So I can understand why you'd want to keep him around, but I do think Frank Reich's going to be a better coach.
I mean, the franchise wanted to lose games, and he damn near took them to the playoffs. So
right.
Yeah, like I said, that it really is a tale of two seasons for us, because when Matt Rule was fired, we had the betting odds to keep the number one pick. And this, you know what I'm saying? And this man just straight up did not let that happen. So I am glad for his location where he landed at with the 49ers, because, all right, they just hit their last couple of DCs out to get head coaching jobs. So hopefully you're in a place and situation where you can get another chance.
For sure. Yeah, no, I think Steve Wilkes is going to be on on the short list for head coaches next offseason easily. I mean, the 49ers defensive coaching staff is like a head coach factory, excuse me, at this point. So at the very least, you'll get to see your guy go coach somewhere else and
Yeah,
get an
yeah,
opportunity. But again, to bounce off that, kind of talking about what happened to the Panthers last season. This was a team that went 7-10, one of 3 teams in the NFC South that went 7-10. They were second in the NFC South, though, due to tiebreakers and whatnot. They were 5-4 at home, 2-6 on the road, and then 3-2 in their last 5. So, kind of like Alex said, this was a team that wanted to lose games in the back half of the year and just didn't. They got a lot better in almost every facet of the game. And I'd be really curious to see. I'm about to list off the EPA per play stats. It's something I've been looking at deeply in these videos I've been doing, and I would be really curious to see what these numbers were like before Steve Wilkes took over, and then what they were just after Steve Wilkes took over. Because I would imagine these numbers jumped way up when Steve Wilkes was coaching. They were 11th in rushing EPA per play, which is no surprise if you watched Deontay Foreman last year. That dude was on a tear. I've seen some people say he was indistinguishable from Nick Chubb in the back half of the year, and I don't think that's the craziest thing to say. Granted, a little bit of bias there because he's now on my Bears, but still, he looked amazing last year.
He's a beast.
Absolutely. 29th in passing EPA per play, which makes a lot of sense. They ran through 3-4 different quarterbacks last year. It's going to happen, unfortunately. 21st in run defense EPA per play, 24th in coverage EPA per play. And then looking at points, they were 20th in points scored with 347, 19th in points allowed with 374, and then 23rd in point differential with -27. So from those numbers there, are there any that immediately jump out to you and show you something that maybe you did see on the field last year, or maybe surprised you because you thought they were a little bit better or a little bit worse in one of those categories?
I think our 2 big blowouts was the 49ers game that got Matt Rule fired, and the Bengals game. When we was getting, mixing at like 4 touchdowns in the first half, and we was getting blown out. Those were the only 2 games where like the score, we started off the year losing with field goals with the Giants and to Cleveland. So even with Matt, it was close enough, you know what I'm saying, to be like, oh, this isn't getting bad. But those were 2 games I think we kind of got spread it on a little bit. We were like, we just obviously 2 teams in the conference championship game, but just got outclassed there. But yeah, that the point differential kind of hearing it now was like, we were kind of a little closer throughout the year than we was looking back now.
Yeah, I think the only thing that really surprised me was the amount of points we actually scored. I feel like we didn't score that many points. So I would expected us to be like damn near last in the league. So for us to be, what'd you say, 20th? Yeah, that's a little surprising to me. I feel like we didn't have that great of an offense.
No.
It's that run game. In the back half of the year, that run game really carried.
That Detroit game, the Detroit game was like a big one where that kind of took over there. The first Atlanta game, the DJ Moore helmet throw, that was one of the high scoring games that we had. So yeah, those 2 were kind of the ones where we kind of put up more points. So that I can remember right now.
For sure. Now looking over to some of the major events from last season, obviously we've already talked about Matt Rule being fired, which I don't think I have to ask your opinion on that. I think we're all consensus it needed to happen. The guy was awful at his job. And then Christian McCaffrey got traded mid-season. So what are your thoughts on that? I'm sure I can probably guess where it's headed, but what are your thoughts on the move?
You got it, Alex?
Yeah, mine might surprise you a little bit. I honestly thought they should have traded him the offseason before, trying to get more out of him. I feel like trading him in the middle of the season, you probably didn't get everything you should have. But the return that they got for him was good, in my opinion. I don't think people were saying that they should have got a first-round draft pick. I'm like, for what? He barely plays. When he plays, he's fantastic. But when he doesn't, he's just riding the bench. So I was happy with the trade, to be honest. I figured he was going to get moved. I'm glad he was the only one that got moved until DJ Moore got moved. But I'm happy about it.
Yeah, I was at the same place. I just wanted him to be free, to be honest. Because, when you – and I hate the whole injury, when he's healthy stuff, because it is real, but we also know the talent that the man is. And he was one of those guys who were like, no, you need to leave so that you can stop making these guys look as bad as they really are. Like, we just need to see these guys be horrible. You're saving them, man. And so we need you to go. I was glad he went to the 49ers, kind of got over there and was able to get a playoff game into the conference championship. But I think it would be shocked. There was actually I feel like there was a pretty big majority who, like Alex, was ready to move off of him last year because we kind of knew we was like, man, we're keep running CMC into the ground. We're not winning nothing. Like we all kind of realized early, like, yo, we don't have a quarterback who's going to help this dude. So,
right.
So again, I was glad that he was able to get where he went, and honestly, it was kind of a relief, ready for the next chapter.
Yeah. And I mean, it's again another move that is great for both sides because you've got Carolina. They get some draft capital off a guy that really hasn't been able to produce for them, hasn't been on the field for them. And then the 49ers, the way they run their offense, CMC isn't going to get nearly as much work as he did in Carolina. He's not asked to be a workhorse. He's not even really asked to run between the tackles that much. He's mostly used as a pass catching weapon. So, really, it's great for all three sides. It's best for McCaffrey's career. He's going to be healthier. He's going to be on the field more. The Niners get another weapon. The Panthers, benefit in the ways that they benefit.
Yeah.
Like, again, I know that's not the sexy answer, but it's really apparent that the Panthers are out here wheeling and dealing pretty fairly with the rest of the league, which I think that's pretty cool. I know it's not the big finesses everybody wants, but I always like to see when both sides benefit from a move. But one place that both sides are not going to benefit is with the defensive coordinator that the Panthers brought in, because they absolutely stole Ejiro Evero from the Denver Broncos. Huge move for you guys. I'm really, really excited to see what he's going to do for you all. I think he's one of the best young defensive minds in football. He's a Vic Fangio disciple, going to see a lot of quarters, a lot of quarter half next year. Something I'm curious about, and you guys can give your thoughts on this. In Denver, they tried to run a lot of quarter half, which the way it's ran, you're going to have a cornerback who is essentially asked to lock up one side of the field, right? And in Denver, they did that a lot with Pat Surtain, who is one of the better corners in football. So I'm kind of curious, do you guys think you can do that with JC Horn? Do you think he's good enough at this point in his career to, do things like Pat Surtain has been doing?
I think JC's more on an island lockup. And that was so I'm well documented saying it. I wanted Pat Surtain over JC.
Mm-hmm.
Like I did. I was great with both because I think JC, which I feel like it's the same similarities to me with Stingley and Gardner. I feel like Gardner and JC are more, what guy do you want out the game and I'm just gonna take care of them. And I felt like we got a good example of that when we played Seattle when he was locking up with DK. And then they was like, hey, we got to move DK away from him somehow. And then they finally started getting him into action. I see JC's best attribute as being a man corner. So like on the coverage end, I think that benefits Dante Jackson more because he freelances a lot. And I've seen him chase down picks on the other side of the field if you give him the chance. So in that case, I think it benefits him more than it does JC. But like with Jackson and with Henderson and man, it's like, there could be some of the problems there. Sure. So I do think it is potentially capable. You said, I think Evero's a beast. I think our D-line will be able to do just a little more than what Denver's was able to do last year. Absolutely. I can't say the Justin Simmons version of this is Jeremy Chin in this defense. I think that's more a Von Bell type of move. Xavier Woods should have probably had 5 or 6 picks last year, and bro keep dropping them. So I'm not expecting him to catch anything. He just keeps dropping picks. But I think Von Bell will probably kind of have that role in it. But yeah, JC, I think he's more gonna travel. But that's just how. What do you think, Alex? Man?
I agree. I think JC Horn's a superstar. If he can stay healthy, I think he's arguably top 5 in the league already. I will say I agree where I think Dante Jackson is going to be more of that roamer where he's just playing all over the place because Dante Jackson really irritates me because he's either great or he's getting burnt through a touchdown. It's either an interception or he's being burnt. And it drives me crazy. But, I mean, I love it when it's an interception. But, yeah, I think JC absolutely has that capability if he can stay healthy. The problem is he hasn't made it through a season yet. Granted, it's only been 2, but we'll see. I hope he stays healthy this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Alex, I like the boldness of when he's on the field, he can be top 5.
I agree with that. I mean,
I don't agree with it personally, but I respect the boldness. I respect the take. I'm not going to sit here and argue with you because I do think he has at least the upside of that.
You think he's top 10? You think he's top 10 right now?
top 10-ish. Yeah. 10,
I
somewhere
know
in the 10 to
5
15 range.
is very tight. The top 5
Yeah.
cornerbacks in the league is very tight. So I
Okay.
understand that. So I understand top 5 being like, hey, you gotta, especially with missing time, you can't. But if he's top 10, and I say I can take that. I can take
Yeah.
that.
Like I said, he somewhere between like 6 and 15 is where I'd put him. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have corner rankings off the top of my head, but definitely when he's on the field, he is one of the better corners in football. He's very, very good lockdown corner, like Vita said. So I'm excited to see how he's going to be used next year with Avero. Because like I said, he did a lot of that lockdown, kind of asking Pat Surtain to take away one side of the field on his own. And I think we'll see JC Jackson do a little bit of that, just lock up on the X receiver and see what happens. Now, at this point, considering you guys have a new DC, this is where in a normal video, I would go through and talk about what he did last year, right? So like I would go back, look at the Broncos coverages and things like that. However, Avero kind of got screwed last year due to injuries to the point where he had to completely change everything on his defense, which much credit to him for being flexible. That's fantastic. I love it. So I'm not going to list off the percentages and stuff of what he did last year because it's probably not going to stay the same. However, looking at what the Panthers did last year to give you an idea of where this defense was at, they were 10th in cover 0 with 2.4% of their plays being out of cover 0. They were 23rd in cover 1 with 17.1%, 22nd in cover 2 with 6.9%, 4th in cover 3 with 44.1%. And that stat's a little misleading because a lot of that cover 3 was them running fire zone plays where you have 3 guys deep, 3 guys underneath, and then you send 5 at the quarterback, obviously with Nicky Luvu being that extra or that extra pass rusher. And they did this a lot to like force one-on-ones with their defensive line. In fact, they had 40 guys, or I'm 40, Jesus. They had 4 guys last year with 30 or more pressures, and then had another 2 guys with over 20 pressures. And one of my favorite like stats to pull from that is one of those guys who had over 40 pressures was Derek Brown, who, as we all know, fantastic run defender. In my opinion, one of the more underrated pass rushers in the league, because this guy managed to rack up 45 pressures, but only 1 sack. And me personally, I'm not a huge numbers guy, but when I see something like that, it stands out because it's very clear to me that like Derek Brown is doing his job. It's just sacks are such a volatile stat that are going to change constantly, and they're really inconsistent that like, people look at the sack numbers and be like, oh, he only had 1 sack. No, he was a really, really good pass rusher last year.
If you would have asked Panthers Twitter going into the year, he was a bust. If you would have asked Panthers Twitter going into the year, a lot of people was calling him a bust. But we know, like you said, they look at sack numbers, they don't look at pressure rates. Panther fans I feel like as a whole, Panther fans were getting tireless of, oh, you're a good run defender, but we want the sexy stuff. We want sacks.
Right. Yeah.
But now like visually on the field, like you can see like, oh no, he's really disrupting everything now. And now everybody else is kind of eating off of it. So it's his I didn't have him in the bust category, but definitely what he did last year was like it definitely got me excited for where he's going, because now it's like, oh, you got it figured out. Like, okay, you got it figured out. Now everybody else can kind of work around you. So I'm excited for where he's going, man.
I agree. I think this is going to be the year when he breaks out and finally does get some of those sacks. I'm not saying like 10 or anything, but I think he could have 6 easily. And I think he really helps Brian Burns and Frankie Louvu and now Justin Houston, because him up the middle, scramble, you're getting a sack. Yeah. I think he's a tremendous talent.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Beast, man.
Yeah. As a testament to how much I like Derek Brown, I can tell you right now, when Bears Twitter was all uppity about, wanting to trade with the Panthers to get DJ Moore and, trade away the first overall pick, I don't know if you guys know much, if anything, about Matt Eberflus's defense, but the way it works is it's very reliant on the 3 tech, right? You really need a dominant defensive tackle.
So he had Solomon in Indy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
he had DeForest Buckner in Indy.
DeForest. Why did I say
the other
I get those 2 mixed up. Yeah, I get them 2 mixed up.
Yeah, I get you. No, I knew who you meant. It's just
I always get them 2 mixed up.
But that's the thing. Like, he had the 3 most important positions on his defense are 3 tech, which was DeForest Buckner, nickel corner, which was Kenny Moore, and then he needs to have at least 1 rangy linebacker, which was Shaq Leonard, right? So I was wanting the Bears to trade for Derek Brown. because not only would he have been massive for Matt Eberflus's defense, but also like in the back of my mind, I was like, maybe the Panthers don't value him as much as you can get extra draft capital on top of it. But I love Derek Brown. He's one of the more underrated defensive tackles in the league in my mind. He's somebody that I actually would put in the top 10 for their position, like 100%, no doubt about it. Like I said, 45 pressures, that was one of the best like seasons by any D tackle last year. He just didn't get the sacks to show for it. And it's not one of those things where like he's getting in the backfield and he's whiffing on tackles or he's taking bad angles or something. He's just consistently pushing the pocket. And then other guys like Vita mentioned are going in and cleaning up. It opens up Brian Burns. It opens up gross-matos. It opens up Frankie Louvu. It opens up whoever. And that's the beauty of a big boy like Derek Brown.
No, it is.
Yeah, because he can do all that. And then in the run game, he can two gap and borderline play nose tackle. And it's wonderful. He's a super versatile defensive tackle, and I absolutely adore him. But finishing off, looking at the coverage numbers for the Panthers last year, they were 5th in quarters with 20.9%. I imagine that'll stay the same ideally because, like I said, Avero, he's a Fangio guy. That's their bread and butter. 25th in quarter half with 4.6%. I think that'll go up. And then 29th in cover 5 with 0.1%. Not a lot of cover 5. Not a lot of teams are out here running a ton of cover 2 man in the NFL right now. So this defense, the way it's built is it's very reliant on pressure, right? You want the guys up front to do a lot of damage, and then it makes the corners' jobs a hell of a lot easier, which I find kind of ironic because I would imagine in an ideal world, a guy like Avero, he wants the opposite, where his coverage is so good that his defensive linemen, get to the quarterback a lot easier. So I think it'll be interesting next year to see how he approaches that and what he does with it, because I don't think it's crazy to say that the Panthers defensive line is quite a bit better than their secondary right now. And that's not even a shot at their secondary. Their defensive line's just that fucking good. So like I said,
and it's crazy you say that because there's the ongoing argument within Panther fans of a lot of people don't like Dante Jackson or CJ Henderson anymore because we're so traumatized by the Tom Brady, Tampa Bay game with Mike Evans and the 3 touchdowns. Right. But we're also trying to figure out who's going to now Justin Houston, who is going to be on the other side of Brian Burns. So we are excited to kind of figure out what Everall's going to do here too, because like you said, he was working with a little last year in an elite corner and safety, and you just kind of like, he was making it work. And as long as his team stays healthy, like, man, we kind of got some pieces here. What are you going to do here? So like, hey, I'm just as excited as you to kind of figure out what route they're going to go here with this team, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And then looking at the blitz percentages for the Panthers last year, specifically on third down, because I think those are the most interesting to take a look at here. Remind you this, or just as a reminder for anyone out there watching, this is only between the 20s. This isn't red zone blitz percentages because that's a whole different beast. Teams' tendencies change up a lot when they're in the red zone. So between the 20s, they were 29th and 3rd in short blitzing, which makes sense. You don't really have to bring a lot of guys on 3rd and short with that defensive line. On 3rd and medium, they were 6th with 50.9% of all 3rd and mediums being blitzes. They were 4th and 3rd and long percentage with 48.6%. And as I already alluded to, that's what I like to call the Frankie Louvu effect, because this accounts for any time you're blitzing or you're sending more than 4 people. And the Panthers, a lot of the time, were just sending Frankie Louvu as an extra pass rusher, line him up at outside linebacker. And oh my God, that dude is so fun to watch play football because he can really do a little bit of everything. Like he's kind of like Kyle Van Noy on steroids is kind of how I look at him. I absolutely love it. I don't know if you guys want to throw in anything about Louvu. I'm sure he's a fan favorite. I don't know a whole lot about Panthers fans,
he is.
But
fan favorite, man. He's definitely become a fan favorite. We kind of feel like we're looking at, sometimes you get excited and you want to push that energy onto somebody else. But we picked up Kamu Hill, who came over, and he's had like an extraordinary camp from all, and he's kind of been playing this Louvu-like role, filling in with him. So we're kind of like, because Louvu's actually been lined up more in the middle beside Shaq,
Interesting.
So
okay.
yeah, Louvu's been kind of more lined up, and I thought it was going to be Brandon Smith. That's because I just thought, give him a chance, but looks like Louvu's more lined up in the middle with Shaq and Chin and Bell, and he's kind of moving other pieces around. So it'd be tough to get the same type of look out of this defense, but you're right, man. I think Louvu's definitely become a fan favorite, man. What you think?
And he's not bad in coverage at all.
No,
Like,
no,
he's
not
by
pretty
any
solid
means.
in coverage. So I'm
Yeah.
not. I think he actually might do better in the 3-4 than he did in the 4-3.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see how they use him because, like Van Fleet's been saying, they are playing him in the middle, at least in preseason or not preseason, but in camp. It seems like he's playing next to Shaq. So that's interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, he's somebody that it doesn't matter where you line him up at. If you send him at the quarterback, he's going to find a way to get there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not like you're losing the pass rushing if you kick him inside. You're just gaining somebody that, like you guys said, is pretty solid in coverage, and I would say is a pretty damn good run defender. So,
which is scary. It brings up kind of a bad. I don't say a bad thing because having good. If they all are good players, it ain't a bad thing. But we still got to sign Burns, Brown, and potentially have to get Louvu money at the end of this year.
right.
If all of these dudes play up to this standard, somebody is going to price themselves out of Carolina. So
that defense is about to get paid.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that defense is like there's a lot of people on that defense who's getting ready to get money. So
I hope they can lock up Burns before the season starts. Because if we wait till next season, I think it's going to be even worse. Like I think he's going to be probably the highest paid in the league if we wait till next.
Yeah, Burns, Brown, Louvu, Chin, and Horn getting his option picked up are kind of the guys on defense who will have to get their money.
I think Chin might be the odd one out of that group.
Chin might, and he's my favorite. He's my favorite.
I love Chin, but he had a great rookie year. And then last year, his coverage was atrocious. So I'm hoping they put him more at linebacker than anything this upcoming season.
So that's kind of fearful is that we have these pieces, and with Evero, who probably could be a 1-year deal, he probably could find his way out of here after this year too if he does right. So it's almost like, man, you don't almost want to get too attached. Because you know that this guy has had his head coach interviews, and if he has a good year, he could be on his way out too.
The thing with paying everybody, though, is we have the money. Well, next season
we do.
Because we're not really paying anybody right now, really. Like Miles Sanders might be the only big contract that I can think of.
Yeah.
The issue with that is, though, you're going to have so many offensive pieces you got to pay here soon. You've got Ike Ekwonu, who, if he keeps trending upward, is going to make big money. Bryce Young will probably set some record by the time he's ready to get paid. Like, it's tough.
Yeah.
No, they got their job cut out for him. They got their job cut out for him with that, man. So, but a lot of defensive players are going to have to get their money sooner than later. So,
yeah, and I think Alex brought up a great point, specifically with Brian Burns, because in my opinion, he's coming off his best career year so far. The big thing for me is, obviously we know Brian Burns is a great finesse rusher, right? He's super fast, quick off the edge, hard to get your hands on him. But for a while there, if you did get your hands on him, he was kind of cooked because he didn't really have much power to his game.
No.
And then last year he comes out and starts flashing a bull rush that, like, oh my God, finally. Because you think about it, the term speed to power, right? You have a guy that's really fast because of things that I struggle to explain because I'm bad at math. The force of somebody moving, so fast and hitting another human being should generate some type of force, some type of pushback. And I think Brian Burns finally learned that that's a thing. Because like I said, he was putting that on display last year. Now, I still have my issues with him in run defense, but you've got guys like Matos who are pretty solid run defenders. And it's not the end of the world as long as you have one guy that can set the edge and really, pick things up. I think Burns can improve as a run defender for sure. But when you've got a guy that's a superstar like that, or at least a borderline superstar, like Alex said, you got to lock him up, especially at that position. Because if you don't, somebody else is going to pay him a lot of money. I can tell you right now, I would love to have him in the blue and orange.
I think he's definitely going. He's going to get whatever money I believe that he wants, and I think that was kind of known the moment that they didn't trade him to the Rams.
For sure.
Yeah, the moment that they didn't make that deal was like, no, you're staying, and you're going to get what you're going to get.
I completely forgot about the Rams thing. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Crazy story.
Mm-hmm.
I went up to the Baltimore game. Me and my bro went up to the Baltimore game, and we're just randomly in the casino because the casino was like next door to the stadium almost. And I run into Brian Burns' mom because I was like, I didn't know who she was. I just had on my Carolina beanie, and she stops me. You see everybody, hey, keep pounding, keep walking. And she stops and she was like, "Hey," I said, "Hey, how you doing?" And then she was like, you know, just kind of quick talk. She said, "Yeah, I'm Brian's mom." I said, "You lying, don't lie to me." You know what I'm saying? But she's really his mom. And I had asked, I said, "Can I ask you, was that trade real?" She was like, "No, it was real." He said, "Yeah."
That's
She
great.
said she said she really thought that they was leaving. I was like, "Oh, snap." I was like, "Shoot." I was like, so yeah, that was just kind of funny.
I would
Yeah.
have been so mad if he got
Yeah.
traded there. I would have been
Yeah.
so angry.
Yeah, so I was just like, I don't know if I can ask you this. You can't tell me. I was like, was that trade real? And she was just like, "Yeah, it was." He thought he was really gonna go, but the moment they didn't make that, you knew, like, nah, you're gonna get your money, because especially with making a move for any rookie quarterback, with like, we have to pay other people so that we could take advantage of the rookie deal. So I was very Burns in his training camp interview said that he wasn't going to hold out because he wanted to be a part of this, which I think gives him even more leverage. I'm just kind of like, yo, just get a man his money and let's go about our day.
Yeah, no,
I
absolutely.
agree.
I'd hand him a blank check. Like
Yeah, just
I
give him
don't
his money.
I
Let's
don't
go
see
about
any
it.
world where he doesn't get paid by Carolina. I'm just
And
saying, in like the
I'm telling you,
0.02% chance that he does
Yeah,
hit free
yeah.
agency, you know, I
they
wouldn't
should
mind.
do it because I'm telling you, I think he's going to make a real case for Defensive Player of the Year
Yeah.
this year. I
Oh,
really do.
wouldn't shock me at all.
And if he messes around and wins it, you're going to owe him even more money. So you should go ahead and get that man paid. Let him be happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, as much as I love Derek Brown, he's probably my favorite player on the Panthers defense right now. Burns is the key. He is the number one face on that defense. You need to pay him, then you pay Brown. And kind of like Alex said, I think Jeremy Chin's going to end up being the odd man out, which when we talk about the draft, I'm going to propose something that, you know, may or may not be a little controversial for Panthers fans, but we'll talk about that when we get there. Yeah, like I said, we'll get there when we get there. But jumping over to the offense, I'm a big run game guy. Alex knows this. Fullback's my favorite position. I love a well-executed running game. And the Panthers in the back half of the season absolutely had one of those. Like I alluded to earlier, Deontay Foreman looked amazing last year. You know, it was a really productive running game, which I think came as a surprise to a lot of people, you know, after you trade away a superstar running back.
Man. It surprised us too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Trust us. It surprised us too. So.
Yeah, you trade away a superstar running back, and then here comes this guy that, you know, to most is like a power back, and he's tearing it up. So looking at their run splits, you know, the type of concepts they were running last year, they were tied for 21st in outside zone with 18%, which was really shocking to me when I saw that number, because you look at a lot of Foreman's runs, like the big runs, the big explosive plays, and a lot of them were outside zone. It was a lot of running it to the outside and him just taking it. So I was a bit shocked there, but I guess it's like highlight bias. You know, we all fall victim to it from time to time. They were tied for 9th in inside zone with 27% of their snaps. They were first in duo runs with 31% of their snaps, 8th in power with 11% of their snaps. So it was very much a north to south running game, despite what those big explosive plays might suggest. They were tied for 26th in counter with 3%, tied for 25th in draw with 1%, and then 30th in pin and pull with 2%. And I think this is something that is mostly going to stay the same next year with Frank Reich. But I do think you're going to see a little bit more outside zone, because you've got Thomas Brown coming over from the Los Angeles Rams. And, you know, Sean McVay and everything he runs is very similar to what Kyle Shanahan runs. And Kyle Shanahan, his bread and butter is that outside zone. So I do think we'll see more of that next year. But I do think for the most part, it'll definitely be a north to south running game. Although it's hard to judge because of Miles Sanders, because he's not somebody that, at least to me, strikes me as someone that's going to want to run between the tackles a whole lot. He's more of I want to bounce it outside and make the big plays. And I think a lot of that comes from his issues with his ball carrier vision, something that I really worry about with him. And we'll talk about him when we get into free agency, obviously. But I do think at the very least that outside zone number is going to shoot up a good bit.
Yeah, I think so.
And then in the passing game,
I think there's going to be I think a lot of the RPOs will be kind of like more outside zone type stuff, nothing dead up the middle. So I think I agree with you there. I think that's going to stay.
And then jumping over to the passing game, this is kind of messy because, like I said, you're running 4 different quarterbacks. You got to do different things for different guys, and it was.
You ain't even got to give these numbers, man. Just chalk it up to a loss. We chalk this one up, man. I would tell you this. And it's been my line since Matt Rule and the whole thing. Carolina had the worst head coaching quarterback room in the NFL.
For sure.
So all of those numbers We just hope that we are nowhere near close to that next year. See, you got to give us those numbers, man, because we live through it. We live through it, man.
Yeah. It's crazy that you could argue that PJ Walker was the best quarterback last year.
Really,
and that's saying something.
And now he's a backup. Yeah.
So it's our hope with the passing numbers is offensive-minded head coach, Thomas Brown coming from the McVay system. Hopefully, it improved O-line. Obviously, missing DJ. So we're just kind of like, you know what? Let's just damn near not be near the bottom, like we wasn't having to suffer through that, which we won't, man.
Yeah.
But trust, you ain't got to say them numbers, man. We know they ugly.
I mean, I just want to bring up one thing real quick. The big thing that stands out to me is this was a team that really tried to be like an after the catch offense, like the San Francisco 49ers. So they almost view their short game as an extension of the run game, because they were tied for 30th in air yard percentage with 45.9%. So 45.9% of their passing yards came through the air, less than half. And they didn't really have a guy last year that they could look at consistently and be like, hey, I'm going to throw you a 3-yard pass. Go get me another 9. And that was kind of the big downfall for them. And we saw kind of flashes of like them being able to take shots down the field. Obviously, PJ Walker to DJ Moore against the Falcons, play of the year, if you ask me. Definitely no bias there. I like I said, it was just,
I think
it was a very messy offense.
It was. God knows, I know Alex knows the Laviska Shenault play where he runs halfway across the formation and runs back and bubbles this, the one he scored on against the Falcons on the Thursday night game. So you could tell that still not confident in the O-line early. Baker, like the first couple weeks, you want to talk about batted passes. Baker was just getting everything batted before he finally ended up getting out of there. And then when they finally did calm it down, like we had the Rams game. We only threw like 3 passes? Listen, like the Rams, like McCaffrey's last game.
I think it was like maybe 3 completions. I want to say he threw
it wasn't. You could tell they was actively trying not to throw the football.
Yeah, it was bad.
It was bad because that was McCaffrey's last game, and they got him lit up just trying to do some quick stuff to get it out of the system. So, but after when they finally got down the line, we kind of saw a carved out role for TMJ, which was just to be the big body, which I think I thought he would have a little more of a breakout in him this year, but I'm kind of thinking he's just going to be relegated to being the big body kind of jump ball one-on-one guy. You said, I think kind of the craftiness and what we could see from Thielen working in the middle and stuff would help. But last year they wanted it to be, I think they didn't want it to be like that, throwing short. I just don't think nobody had nothing going for them. The offense actually looked better to me when we had Joe Brady, OC. The offense was.
They want Laviska to be the Deebo Samuel. It's just there's a big difference between Deebo Samuel and Laviska Shenault. So we'll see. They're already hyping him up in camp that he's going to be Deebo Samuel this year. So we'll see.
I know that all too well with Velus Jones. I had everyone telling me last offseason, Velus Jones is Deebo Samuel. It's like, listen, no disrespect to Deebo, no disrespect to the 49ers, but now every gadget player is Deebo Samuel headed into the season, and it's wild.
It is.
Yep. But moving on to something actually positive, Vita mentioned it earlier. This coaching staff is absurd. Obviously, we've talked about new head coach in Frank Reich, new defensive coordinator in Ajero Avero, new offensive coordinator in Thomas Brown, who worked under Sean McVay for the past 2 years. You've got Chris Tabor as a special teams coordinator. He's sticking around, used to coach with my Chicago Bears. I know all about him. He's fantastic. You've got assistant head coach and running backs coach Deuce Staley, which awesome. Love that. James Campen, the offensive line coach, he's sticking around after what he did with that line last year because it was pretty damn good down the stretch. Once Bradley Bozeman kind of took over midseason for Pat Elflein, it really, really took a step up. Sean Jefferson, brought in as the wide receivers coach, has 26 years of combined experience between playing and coaching. And he's also Rams wide receiver Van Jefferson's dad, which I thought was pretty cool. You've got Josh McCown, because why not? 18 years of quarterback experience. People were talking about him taking over as an offensive coordinator. I think he even got a head coach interview in Houston.
Texans.
Like insane. And he's just your QB's coach, getting to work with Bryce Young. I love that. Bryce Young's got 2 former NFL quarterbacks with him and Frank Reich to work with, and I think that's fantastic. You've got Dom Capers as the senior defensive assistant, who has been coaching for 49 years. He has been coaching for almost 2.5 of my lifetimes. That is insane. And ironically, he was somebody that Ejiro Evero worked under in Green Bay back in 2016, and now Avero's teaching him stuff. And I think that's going to be fun to watch because Evero is very much like the coverage half of things. That's kind of where he specializes. And Dom Capers, if there's one thing that man knows how to do, it's drop a blitz. So those two paired together, I think, is a match made in heaven. You've got Todd Walsh, the defensive line coach, who has 27 years of coaching experience, with 16 of those coming in the NFL. And then D'Angelo Hall coaching the DBs because, again, why the fuck not? Yeah. This coaching staff is amazing. I cannot sing high enough praises for it.
The one I was most shocked about, Jim Caldwell. I didn't think he was.
Oh yeah, that's right. Jim Caldwell is on this staff too, isn't he?
Yeah, he's like.
I totally forgot.
It's like they just created a role just to be like, hey man, look, we'll give you some money. Yeah, and like we'll just give you some money to come hang out. Like we'll just give you some money to come. Yeah. So getting Caldwell, because it was it was rumored that if he didn't get any position now or this year, that he was just going to be done. So the fact that we was kind of able to bring him in on the back end and advisor roles is kind of like, all right, if you truly set up Bryce to, get as much wisdom as possible and grow. So yeah, the Caldwell pick, the entire, like Alex said to start, the entire coaching staff is what has me and a lot of the fans most excited.
As it should.
Good Lord, I ain't gonna say no other words about that other guy. But it's just truly a breath of fresh air for so much experience when you went from having none. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah. I saw somebody, I can't remember who it is for the life of me, but they described the Panthers coaching staff as this team being like, okay, we have a salary cap for players, whatever. We don't have one for coaches. Let's just spend everything we possibly can to make this coaching staff perfect. Yeah, I totally forgot about Caldwell.
I'm a billionaire. Let me spread the love.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
He did. Yeah. And that's always something that kind of got me too. Like, there is a salary cap for players, but there's not one for coaches. So you could kind of tell, or I don't know how true it is, but they said that's one of the reasons why the Raiders didn't fire McDaniels is because they can't afford to fire and pay another coach after the Gruden experiment. After the Gruden experiment. I don't know how true it is, but that's what they said, that they just couldn't afford to fire him and pay Gruden and hire another coach. So I was like, hey, I get it. You know what I'm saying? So
I appreciate David Tepper spending all this money because it proves to me that he learned from his mistake.
He learned his lesson.
He hired Rule. That was a disaster. So now let's go bring in some experience and pay them however much they need to come here.
Yeah. Now I will tell you this. We're gonna talk about the coaching staff now, right? Just even more with Frank. Okay, cool. In the moment, I did wish we would have got rid of Rule last year because I like last year's crops of head coaches more than I like this year's crops. Just being honest, I like Brian Daboll or Mike McDaniels more than I like Frank Reich.
Sure.
So I was kind of like, man, maybe we, again, not expecting Reich to lose his job and then make his way over here. But last year I was kind of upset with I don't know who's going to be up for head coach. And the only two names I was kind of thinking of at the time was Raheem Morris for DC for the Rams. I knew D'Amico was going to be up for a job. I knew Eric Bieniemy was probably going to be making. So I was like, those are the only three guys I kind of thought of. Obviously, it worked its way out, but I was kind of like, man, it would have been nice if we could have had a shot at Daboll or McDaniels last year.
Yeah,
sure. I mean, to play devil's advocate for a moment, I completely agree. Like McDaniels and Daboll are probably going to be better coaches in the league. Like I think they are as it stands.
Yeah.
I'm also unnaturally high on McDaniels because he's a Shanahan product, and I am Shanahan's biggest fan outside of San Fran. I love those guys, but when you look at Frank Reich, especially now that they have Bryce Young, he is exactly what the Panthers needed. Like you said, this was a team that their last head coach had no experience. Frank Reich has a ton, both as a player and as a coach. He is, in my opinion, a QB guru. I know he didn't exactly have the best luck with guys like Carson Wentz or whoever else, but who would? Right? Yes. They didn't give him a serious quarterback in Indy, and I already went over this. He was a scapegoat. He got scapegoated there. Yeah. So now you give him Bryce Young, and his ideal type of quarterback, it seems like, for his offense is just somebody who's really smart, because he asks a lot of his quarterbacks. Like we see a lot of offenses nowadays where I don't want to say it gets dumbed down, but it gets simplified to start things off, right? Like you look at Philadelphia's offense last year with Shane Steichen and Jalen Hurts, and probably what Steichen's going to do with the Colts this year with Anthony Richardson. It's not a super complex or tasking offense for a quarterback. Not to say that it's easy that anybody could run it. That's not the case. It takes a special type of quarterback to do it, but it's not taxing, right? This type of offense is going to be very taxing. There is pretty much you're throwing the quarterback out there on an island and saying, hey, do everything. This is all you. I'm not going to help you.
Yeah.
And you go out and get Bryce Young, who was, in my opinion, the smartest quarterback in this class, the most polished quarterback in this class, the most NFL ready quarterback in this class. The only issue with the guy is he's short, for fuck's sakes.
Yeah,
like everything is there.
Yeah.
You give him a quarterback with all of that, and you ask him to do like there's three main things that a quarterback needs for a Reich offense. They need touch, timing, and anticipation. Bryce Young is elite in all three of those things. He is the perfect quarterback for a Frank Reich offense. And he has wheels. Like he can move a little bit if he needs to. Like we'll talk about him more when we get to the draft, but my comparison for him is like a bite-sized Patrick Mahomes. Like he can do everything.
Yeah.
And you put him in this type of offense, I think it's a match made in heaven. Now, I don't disagree that Dable and McDaniel are better coaches, and I can absolutely see why you wanted them, but I think it worked out perfectly for the Panthers.
Yeah, no, you're not. No, you're right. And that was just in the moment. I try to be honest about how I feel about a person.
I get you. Yeah.
And so like when they came out last year, I said, man, I know Dayball and McDaniels are going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
Frank, I had to go back and kind of look at because I was like, okay, when he took the job, what coach wouldn't take the job when you know you're going to have Andrew Luck as your quarterback?
Right.
And everything you mentioned was, I need my quarterback to be capable of doing this. Oh, I got a job. I could go with Andrew Luck. Yeah, let me go over there then and take this job. And then he retires, and then you got to go to Brissett, Rivers, Wentz.
Mm-hmm.
And then you lose your job after you finish off with Matt Ryan. So it's kind of like you said, you take, and I understand from the Colts ownership point of view of it, was hired to kind of make a win now mode, and you ain't want to give that up. So I understand why when Frank came over, he was like, look, I'm taking the job. You got to give me my guy. And so he went to go get his guy. He was like, I'm not doing this again. But I'm like, when I look back, I'm like, man, I don't feel his offense. They said his offensive was always like top 15. And I think every year was top 10 in rushing outside of one.
Mm-hmm.
Was one of the stats I think they said during his time with the Colts.
Yeah.
I've always, when I seen his offenses, you always knew his offense was at minimum going to be middle of the pack. That's just how I felt about it.
For sure.
Which gave me like the first response of him was being like, okay, is it you or is it really that you didn't have the guy playing quarterback that you needed to take that to the next level? Because then, I just kind of go look at Andy Reid and people forget Andy kept falling short until he got the best quarterback in the league when he was messing that round with. So I'm kind of like, okay, maybe you do need to get your guy to run your offense because you keep trying to change him every year. Nobody's even getting a second chance.
Mm-hmm.
So I am intrigued by what could be everything you spoke about, what Frank expects from his offense. I'm like, okay, I see all of that. I think they did draft the perfect person for that. So yeah, I'm all up, man. I'm definitely excited for real.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I'm thrilled. I'm very excited. I'm just intrigued. Like you said, like I just want to see what it looks like, especially since we saw the first preseason game and they said that they didn't run any of the scheme that they want to run.
Yeah.
They're hiding it all until week 1, and it's like, I want to see something at least, like a little bit.
There's a two-way street for that for me. And I've been struggling with it all week. I really have. There's we got some stuff and we just are ready to explode and show it. Or you got one or two tricks and that's all you got and you ain't got nothing else behind that. So you don't want to show anybody anything now because you don't want them to figure you out.
That's so are we waiting until drive 1 of Atlanta week 1?
Yeah.
Pull some trick plays, or do we actually have a scheme and we just don't want to show it to them yet?
No, you're right. I do think they again, man, I do think the staff and Reich itself, I do think they will set up this offense to be definitely better than what we had last year in the passing game. Like definitely in the passing game with the upgrade at coach and quarterback. And I think that's just kind of what I'm excited to see what it looks like in year 1 at least.
For sure. But to transition out of that, jumping into the offseason, free agency is the big thing, obviously. And I'm going to ask this question. You can talk about somebody who's not a free agent. Wink, wink, if you get what I'm going with this. Who do you think was the biggest loss for the Carolina Panthers this offseason?
Yeah, it's definitely DJ, man.
Yeah.
Like off the rip, like it really is. Like we could stand here today and say I am happy with the end result of it.
Sure.
But every Panthers fan will say the same thing, is we all wanted DJ to have better.
Mhm.
Like we all wanted DJ to have, we all knew, we've been screaming for years, get this guy, you know what I'm saying? So, a quarterback, so he can show you guys he's top 10, top 5. So like I felt with McCaffrey, we wanted the guy to have better. And in that moment, the situation didn't allow it. So yeah, like it's going to hurt missing DJ. Like it really is. So that's who I feel like clearly is the biggest loss, honestly.
Yeah, I don't think there's another answer. It has to be DJ. I think DJ needed a quarterback this whole time. Just like how Terry McLaurin needs a quarterback, give DJ a quarterback and let him show you how good he is. And so to lose him, I know we got Bryce out of it, but to lose him, it's huge for the offense.
Yeah. I'm glad you two are realistic and aren't like every other Panthers fan that I've seen try to, or not every other, but a lot of the more vocal Panthers fans.
Hey, David, listen, man, there's a part of me that wishes Tepper would have came down after Matt Rule got fired and be like, hey, McCaffrey, DJ, we're going to lose every other game, but I'm going to go get you your guy. There's a part of me that wishes we lost every game from that moment and kept the number 1 pick and then had this entire staff and just took Bryce on top of it. And then I'll be losing my mind right now. So there is that world that I think about of, man, what if you would have sat down with DJ and CMC and be like, hey, we're going to lose, but we're going to go get the guy and we're going to change coaches. Just give me into the offseason to figure it out. But you know what I'm saying? Tepper was prideful. You can see he's changing now and you can see he's made the move. So like, I'm definitely happy, but trust me, that world does exist in the back of my mind of what it would be like if right now we're talking about Bryce with CMC and DJ and Frank Reich and all these dudes. So yeah.
Yeah. But the amount of Panthers fans, and I know this isn't every single Panthers fan. I'm not sitting here trying to stereotype or anything, but like the amount of Panthers fans I've seen almost happy DJ Moore's gone, and not for the reasons you guys are talking about of like he finally has a guy, right? He finally has a chance to show he can be something. It's like he was never that good anyways. He's overrated. He say what you want about his quarterbacks. He never elevated anybody. Like there are a lot of guys I've seen say that. I've even seen some people allude to the fact that Adam Thielen is better than DJ Moore, is going to outproduce DJ Moore. And like, I don't mean any disrespect to Adam Thielen. Despite being a Bears fan, I am a massive Adam Thielen fan. I love the guy's story. I'm always pulling for, a hometown UDFA coming out, balling out, cementing yourself in the team's legacy. Like that's awesome. I love that. But it's the Panthers are going to miss DJ Moore. And I promise that's not me trying to be like gloating or being an asshole. Cause like I said, we're both winning. We're all
told you, I'm one of the probably 25% who fantasized about the Fields Moore connection in blue. You know what I'm saying? So there's it's still gonna be a blue. Not our blue though. Not our blue though. You know what I'm saying? But I am one of the people who like I wanted Fields with Moore in Carolina because so there is going to be a 20% of Panthers fans who every time Fields throws a touchdown to DJ, we could have been like, if y'all were just drafted him then, we could have been had this and not worried about it. So we're gonna miss DJ, man. We're gonna miss DJ. So,
if you go back to that draft where Fields got taken, I've never been more sure that the Carolina Panthers were gonna take a quarterback than that draft pick. And then when they took, I think it was J.C. Horn, I was just like, what? I was in such shock. I was so sure it was Justin Fields, and when it wasn't, I was like, what are we doing?
My stance was I wanted Fields, but I felt like if Penei Sewell was there, that he was the pick.
Yep.
So when he got took in the pick before, I'm like, Pat Surtain and Fields is right there. Just take one of them, but take Fields. So when it was JC, I was like, I was mad. I'm telling you, I was mad. It definitely hurts, man. It definitely hurts. DJ he's a talent, man. He's a talent. He's a top 10 wide receiver, man. But that's the cost you gotta pay. That's the cost. That's the cost, man.
You know,
That's
it's
the cost.
at the end of the day, it's worth it. That's all that matters,
Yeah.
right? It's worth
Like
it.
we said at the beginning, both teams
but-
win, and the Panthers didn't have a choice. You had to go get a guy, and they
For
got him.
sure.
So everybody's happy.
Yeah. But jumping off of that, looking at the other free agent losses for the Carolina Panthers, halfback Deontay Foreman, like we've already talked about, he's also a Chicago Bear now. Quarterback PJ Walker, also now a Chicago Bear. Defensive lineman Bravion Roy, also a Chicago Bear.
Yep.
So there's 4 of them now, all headed to Chicago.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we'll take care of them. I promise. A couple other guys here, Matt Ioannidis, who played 55% of snaps on the defensive line last year. Mr. Consistent, good rotational guy. He's gone, but you did replace him with somebody that I think is going to be a good replacement. Yeah, and I think that's kind of the story of the Panthers offseason is, they lost a lot of guys, but I think they did a good job replacing them. Wide receivers a little bit different because it's hard to find a guy of DJ Moore's talent on short notice. But I think as a committee, and we'll talk about that when we get into free agency, they did a good enough job, and there's going to be a good group of guys that can, do different things. But some other free agents here, quarterback Sam Darnold, now with the 49ers, offensive lineman Pat Elflein, we talked about, was playing center for the first half of the year, got replaced by Bradley Bozeman, and the impact was immediate. Linebacker Damian Wilson, wide receiver Andre Roberts, wide receiver Rashard Higgins, cornerback TJ Carey, safety Sean Chandler, cornerback Justin Burris. Ironically, former Chicago Bear, linebacker Joel Ayegbuniwe, one of my favorite names in NFL history. I'm so sad he didn't work out in Chicago. Wide receiver Preston Williams, cornerback Justin Lane, kicker Zane Gonzalez, cornerback Miles Hartsfield, and then linebacker Corey Littleton.
Out of all of those, the only one I'm concerned about is Zane Gonzalez.
Understandably so.
Only one I'm concerned about is Zane Gonzalez because I felt like before Zane got hurt, he was starting to tee off and do his thing. Eddie came in. And people still holding Eddie hostage about that Atlanta missed field goal. But the last time
field goal killed me on the inside. I was so sad after that game.
The last time we let a kicker go, it turned into Harrison Butker, who's now getting rings in KC. So it's a little scarring, but we're kind of like, I hope we picked the right dude this time again. So Zane's the only one that bothers me because I like Zane. So I mess with him. But those losses to me, said minus Zane, outside of DJ, I think the group that was brought in definitely outweighs the group that we lost in free agency.
For sure.
100%.
And I mean, that's going to happen when you have a new regime coming in. I mean, it's not a full new regime, but a new coaching staff coming in. You're going to have guys that just don't fit the system or don't work with the coach.
Guys.
Yeah, exactly. Facts. Yeah, it's just part of football,
all those Temple players that he brought in for no reason.
But that being said, the Panthers did go out of their way to retain a handful of guys. And I feel like there's one name that stands out here, but just as a whole, who are you the happiest that they retained?
Bradley Bozeman.
Happiest about?
Bozeman. Yeah,
that's fair.
Definitely glad we got Bozeman, man. Like you said, his impact was instant. And we thought it should have been that from day one, but Rule wanted to do what he wanted to do. Nah, man, Bozeman, man. We love that dude. He's a beast, man. So
and
we
he
definitely
loves being here. He wanted to be here, so he wanted to stay. So I like that a lot.
You always love that. That's great.
Yeah.
A couple other notable names here. Obviously, like you guys said, Bradley Bozeman, linebacker Shaq Thompson, been with the Panthers for a minute now. I thought he had a really, really good year last year.
No, he did.
I think at least in run defense, it was the best year of his career.
Yeah, I thought he was going to get traded.
Really?
Yeah, I did. I didn't think that. I thought they were going to get rid of him and keep Luvu.
Fair.
I didn't think they'd keep both of them. I thought they'd trade Shaq, but I'm happy they did.
Yeah, no, they did a good thing keeping both of them.
He was one I was concerned about because, like you said, new regime, everybody coming in. You were kind of like, well, what are they going to do with Shaq? Because he's him and JJ are the only ones on the team that was part of the Super Bowl team, right? So they're the only two that's on the roster that was on the roster during the Super Bowl. So you didn't know what they were going to do with those two. Like, are you guys going to really try to clean house? And the fact that he took less on his contract and everything was like, okay, I see what y'all are doing here. So he definitely was a name who was a little concerned about what was going to happen.
For sure. Yeah, and I'm glad he's sticking around for you guys. Obviously, team captain type of guy, real smart, great leader. And like I said, I was really impressed with him last year in run defense because one of my big pet peeves with defenders is tackling, right? Because that's like the number one thing a defensive player needs to do, unless you're a corner. That's the only exception in my eyes. And Shaq Thompson is someone who consistently his missed tackle percentage is hovering around like 10 to 12%. I don't know the exact number, but he dropped it into the single digits last year. So praise Jesus, hallelujah. He looked way better than he was.
Yeah. We were very tough on him. We were very tough on Shaq for a very, very long time because obviously who he followed up in TD and Luke. So we was all kind of like, hey, man, pick this up. You ain't supposed to be doing that. Yeah, we was very tough on him. But yeah, he's there now. He's there now. He's good, man.
His first few years when TD and Luke were there, it was like, who is this guy? Why is he out here?
Yeah,
he's making everyone else look bad. And now it turns out he's one of the better ones.
Yeah, he was pissing us off, but he's there now, man. We're glad he's still around.
A couple other names here. Tight end Ian Thomas, who I'm sure is a struggle to watch as a pass catcher. I'm sure he's infuriating, but I love him as a blocker. He's a great tight end.
He can block. You ain't lying. You ain't lying. He makes us mad. He makes us so mad. So
I'm sure. Panthers Twitter hates him.
Yeah, we hate him, man. Because again, he was picked up to replace Greg. And we're like, come on, man. You're supposed to be killing us out here.
And then they went and drafted Tommy Trimble to be the receiving tight end. And
I'm still trying to hold my hope on
next season, I bet.
Yeah,
so.
I'm trying to hold hope for Tommy, man. Because I like him.
Tommy ain't going to play no more.
But they said they're using him. He said, David, your favorite position, fullback role. Played a lot of fullback down there in Notre Dame. He's getting some fullback looks.
Thank God.
I like him at fullback.
I love it.
He gets a lot. He's getting fullback looks. So
thank God. And Alex knows why I'm so excited. Because in my eyes, Giovanni Ricci, who has been the fullback for the Carolina Panthers the last couple of years, is the worst one in football. I am not a Giovanni Ricci guy. You put a fullback on the field, I get excited. He doesn't even have to do anything. He could stand straight up after the ball snapped, and I'd still applaud him, cheer. Giovanni Ricci, every time I see him on the field, it's oh dear God. Like he is the only exception to the fullback agenda that I'm constantly pushing. And I literally have written here in my notes. Underneath, like I have Giovanni Ricci highlighted on the free agent retentions. Please bench him for Tommy Tremble. So
no. Tommy's getting his looks. Tommy's getting his looks.
That just made my day. Honestly, that just made my day. Oh, that's beautiful. But yeah, Giovanni Ricci is back, unfortunately. Hopefully he's gonna go back to being like the fourth tight end on the roster that probably gets cut before the season. Fingers crossed. I mean, no disrespect to the man.
No. Yeah, I think he might be. I think he might be somebody who gets cut.
Yeah.
Like I hate preying upon somebody's downfall. I hate wishing for somebody to lose their job. But like, at a certain point, we got to be real with ourselves.
You're still professional. Yeah. You're still professionals, man.
Right.
Still professional.
He'll be okay.
Yeah, exactly. And then a couple other guys they kept around. Cam Irving still kicking it at 31, 32 swing tackle.
We sick of Cam.
I can understand why.
We sick of Cam Irving, man. We tired of him. We tired of him. We like where he's at as a voice. We don't like him as a player.
Fair.
So cool.
A couple other guys here. Long snapper JJ Jansen. Interior defensive lineman Henry Anderson. Offensive guard Michael Jordan. Who
we don't really mess with him either. Yeah, we don't mess with him either. We don't mess with him.
He might be cut.
We're hoping the Chandler Zavala pickup and Cade Mays will move Michael Jordan on about his day.
I love Chandler Zavala.
I think the only reason Michael Jordan's not cut is because we have no depth right now.
Yeah, right now. Yeah.
Because I mean, we all know Michael Jordan, the karma and the bad juju he brings along with him. You don't want on your football team with a young quarterback.
Get that out of here.
You got to get that off the roster. Again, no disrespect to the man, but I mean, some people they just have an aura about him, and he has a really bad one. And then obviously Eddie Pinheiro, former Chicago Bear.
Eddie P, baby.
Safety Sam Franklin. God, I am really tripping over my words right now. I apologize. And then tight end Steven Sullivan. That's it for the retentions. Like I said, I am so happy to hear that Tommy Tremble's taking fullback snaps. That genuinely that made my day. I love that. Because if I'm being honest, I haven't kept up with the Panthers, practice and whatnot too much.
Oh, no.
Probably
It's too much,
should,
y'all. We get
but...
it. Yeah, we get it. No, it's a lot. It's a lot. We all can't keep up with everything, man.
Right.
We all
I'm trying to cover 32 teams here. I can't keep up with everybody's training camp, right?
Trust me, I know.
I pull what I can. I try to keep up with as many fullbacks as possible. I just hadn't heard anything out of Carolina. But anyways,
I'm not saying it's gonna be heavy, but don't be shocked if you be like, "Yo, Tommy's back there."
If he gets like 6% of snaps on the season at fullback, I will be a happy man. That's all I need. As long as it's eating into Giovanni Ricci's snaps, I'm all for it. That's the big thing. But anyways, jumping over to free agent additions, who are you most excited to watch in a Panthers uniform next year?
Von Bell.
I love that answer. I love
Von Bell. I think Von Bell does two things for me. One, seen that man with the Saints. I've seen that man with the Bengals. He brings a wood leadership, man. But I also think he takes pressure off of Chin, because I think both of them can line up on opposite sides of the field, and you don't know which one is doing what. That's how I feel like it gives that versatility for the defense. He's a beast. I'm a safety dude. I love safety. Safety is honestly probably my favorite position with some of my favorite players. So Von Bell being added is by far like my favorite dude of the pickups that I want to see.
Yeah, I agree. I love Von Bell as a pickup. I would probably say Miles Sanders. I don't love the contract we gave him, but I'm excited to see how he performs with this offensive line that made Foreman look so good last year. I hope that they make him look just as good. So I'm excited.
Yeah, Von Bell I love. He's somebody that's not afraid to get down and dirty and do what's necessary. So I can understand why you're excited about him. And then Miles Sanders, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I'm not a huge fan of as a player. I'm somebody that, prefers a running back that, while it's not as sexy as we've already said about a couple different things, is a little more, a little better up here, right? And that's not to say that Miles Sanders is like stupid or something. It's just very clearly he does not see the field as well as a lot of the running backs in the league. He doesn't process things as well as a lot of guys. He's got the same problem that a guy like DeAndre Swift has, where he just tries to bounce everything outside. And that's fine when you have an elite offensive line blocking in front of you. Like, that's why he was so good in Philly, because he had arguably the best offensive line in football. And honestly, one of the easiest jobs any running back in the league had, because you have the mobile quarterback in Jalen Hurts and you have a committee of backs. And he has some of that stuff here in Carolina. You've got a committee of a couple guys that can do different things. And the offensive line in Carolina is really good. But I wouldn't say it's up to Philly's standard, but there isn't a weak link on the line, right? There's no one you're looking at and you're like, okay, that guy sucks, because an offensive line is only as good as its weakest link.
Well, right now for us, it's right guard until Corbett gets back.
Well,
Until Corbett gets back.
I forgot he was here for a second.
And we're praying that he is not more than 2-3 weeks that he has to sit out. Because
And there's a lot of noise on Panthers Twitter. Like, they really want them to bring in another running back, like more of a power back.
I don't blame them. Yeah.
Which
that is my concern too. Like you said, Alex, is the power back.
Like, who's the goal line back right now? I guess it's Miles Sanders, and I don't love that. So can we get?
Yeah.
It's Tommy Tremble running fullback dives. Like, give me something.
That's how you win games.
That's how you win, baby. Just give it to Tommy. Let him get it in there.
Exactly. There you go.
That is a concern. Like I said, I was never the absolute highest on Miles Sanders. I'm also a person who believes there's no such thing as a bad running back in the NFL. But
fair.
But there is a difference in all of them. Like you said, there is a clear difference in all of them. I do think Miles was as much of a product of what he was around. I looked at, I had to kind of go back and look at him. He's kind of been around that 4.5 average. That's kind of what I expect. His durability is what I'm more concerned about.
That's fair.
Because you are paid here to take a load off. Like, you're like over there, you were just kind of like, hey, everybody's focused on everybody else. So you can go ahead and take this 3-4 yards. And then if you get a couple after that, that's on you. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think that's the case here. I was impressed with how Chuba ended the year. And I think Chuba is a better he became a better runner than when we first saw him. Chuba sucks in the passing game. But I also think that's part of where Miles is supposed to come in at. So I wouldn't be shocked if you don't see Chuba take more of a running load to kind of save Miles because Chuba can't pass protect either. So let
Right.
Miles do pass protecting and receiving stuff. But yeah, I'm with you. I've never looked at Miles as like the wow factor dude that he is. But I do like his mentality and kind of like what I see coming from him. Like,
Sure.
yeah, like in that end, like, hey, bring confidence to people. There's a little bit of experience there.
He's
So
been on a team
let's
that
see. Yeah,
wins. He's been
yeah,
on a winning
Yeah.
team. So like that,
yeah,
Yeah.
that's probably
hey-
why he got such a big contract.
Yeah.
Because they're
And I'm not
having
trying to
fun.
say the dude sucks.
No,
Like,
no,
he-
no, no, no. No.
he's
Your
good.
concerns is my
He's
concern.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Your exact
Like-
concern is ours.
Like my point is,
Yeah.
I think a better way to put it is I would call Miles Sanders overrated a little bit, because you look at the production he had last year, and obviously the fantasy football community adores him. And
But that's what I think maybe the way you feel about Miles is the way I feel about Amon-Ra St. Brown.
okay,
Because
interesting.
a lot of people put him in the top 10, 15 wide receiver because of his fantasy numbers. And
True.
I don't do that. Like, I'm not a big fantasy
I'm not
football
either.
guy.
Yeah,
So when
when I-
people so
I was
like
gonna say
I
when
think
I-
yeah.
Sorry,
Go ahead, you good.
my bad.
But
I was
I
gonna
think
say-
that's where I get where you're going now. I get where you're going.
Yeah, like I'm with you. When I play fantasy football, I draft Bears players and then just say fuck it. I'm gonna run with my
Alright,
boys
me
and we're gonna
too.
see what happens.
Me
Like
too.
I'm not a fantasy guy by any means.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
again, Miles Sanders is good, and I think in this offense he can be productive, and that's what matters. You know, like at the end of the day, as much as someone like me, who's an analyst, so to speak, cares about different things like how good are you at this, and this, how good are you really? Are you a victim of or a product of circumstance or whatever?
I'm
At
so
the end of
glad
the
you said that.
NFL teams just care about the production, and that's what
Yeah,
Miles
yeah.
Sanders is going to give you. So
So the exact same thing is what I kind of figured Miles in the situation with Carolina. My expectations for Carolina's offense is the Colts 2018 offense with Brissett. And that year they had Marlon Mack as running back, and Mack had just over 1,010 touchdowns. And you would look it up. That's kind of like, I think that's Miles' production. Like, we'll look at the
Sure.
production and be like, he might be close over 1,000, nothing wowing like he was in Philly. I do think he'll get priority red zone touches. I do think he'll get that, but it's like we won't come back and be like Miles Sanders was a top 5 performing running back this year
Right.
like he was this previous year. I don't think that's the case that we're looking at.
Right.
But
I
I
mean-
do expect him to up his receiving numbers because he was
Yeah.
they didn't use him at all.
Right.
If he
Yeah.
gives me 1,007, I'm happy.
Yeah, that's all I'm asking for. That's all
Yeah,
I'm
and that's the thing. You're not asking him to be a superstar. You just want him to be
You're not.
productive, and that's
asking. No.
again, they care about that more than I do. Because in my opinion, traits matter a lot more than production when it comes to evaluating players. Because you can be,
Yeah.
we can go on and on talking about circumstance and all that, and how much that feeds into production,
No, you're
especially for running backs.
No, you're right.
Because like Vita said, there's no bad running back in the NFL. It's just what offensive line are they running behind? What run scheme are they in? But there are some guys that kind of go above that, right? You have your Derrick Henrys, your Nick Chubbs, your Saquon Barkleys, your Bijan Robinson. I know that might be taboo to say in a Panthers video, but
No, he's a beast. He's a beast.
gonna be like
He's a
that.
beast.
One
He's
of
a
the only
beast.
good players on that team. So
He's a
You know
beast.
what?
Bijan's a
Fair enough.
beast.
Fair
But
enough.
we know what a great running back talent looks like when you still got the question mark at quarterback. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So we know what that looks like. We know what that looks like, and we want to get
Sure.
away from that.
no quarterback,
yeah.
no hope.
Yeah, so that's where we're trying to get away from. But no, he's a beast, man. He really is a talent. But no, I'm with you. I'm with you in that thought, man. And Alex brought up a good point. Some of the guys we brought in, like Miles, Hayden, Vaughn, came from teams that were winning. You know what I'm saying? Like something that was not in it. A lot of these guys in this locker room haven't even seen a playoff game. Or, you know,
I forgot about
Yeah.
Hayden. That would have been
Yeah.
my answer actually, because we
Yeah.
haven't had a tight end since Greg Olson. So it would have been Hayden Hurst for sure, because he
Yeah,
can be mildly productive, and it's better than what we've had the last 3 years.
Yeah. He could literally give us what he gave us last year, and it would double our production in our tight end room. You know what I'm saying? minus the touchdowns that Trimble got, which were some gimmies. Like he's just a clear upgrade. But yeah, it's a lot of guys who were brought in came from teams who are actually winning. These guys, the most we won last year, he said, was just how we ended the year. That's what a lot of these guys know. That was just the best that they've had.
Well, this guy's on defense, but Justin Houston might be. I mean,
Houston's the other one.
that's a sneaky signing right there. Just
Absolutely.
so we can have another guy coming off the edge. I love that free agent signing also.
Yeah, you can never have enough edge depth, especially
Yeah.
with a guy like Justin Houston, who's been productive despite
I think he's going to start.
his age and whatnot.
Yeah, he's on the depth chart to start.
I would imagine so too. Yeah, but I'm saying like that kicks other guys into being depth, and
it
that
does. It does.
Because like
It does.
nowadays you want to rotate your edge rushers a decent bit, keep guys with fresh legs, and now you've got him, you've got Burns, you've got Matos, you've got Amari Barno, you've got DJ Johnson. Like there's a bunch of guys that are going to rotate in and out there now, and that was kind of more my point with the depth thing. But yeah, Justin Houston was a great signing.
Yeah, Hayden was my favorite offensive one, like Alex said, because of the upgrade to the tight end room. But yeah, Vaughn and Hayden, those are the two dudes I was most happy about.
Yeah, for sure. My favorite pickup for you guys, and I already mentioned him, is probably Adam Thielen, just because of
love Thielen.
Yeah, like I said, I love him as a player. But on top of that, he's going to be a really reliable slot receiver, and especially in the red zone, he's going to be huge for Bryce Young. Like Bryce Young, and again, we'll talk about him more when we get to the draft. He is like absurd as a red zone passer. He's one of the best red zone passers I've ever seen in any conference, any league, anything, any level is what I was trying to go for there. And you've got Adam Thielen, who's this really creative red zone playmaker that always has like a cajillion touchdowns every year. That duo is going to be great. I'm really excited for their pairing.
That was the trade-off we had to sacrifice going from DJ to Adam that I felt was like, the one weakness that I always felt was in DJ's game was like, this is route running, kind of like forcing that separation in the red zone and stuff. And for the longest, until last year, he could only get 4 touchdowns in a year. And then it finally took for us to get rid of McCaffrey and everybody to kind of prioritize him in that. And it just didn't feel as natural. But like you said with Adam, it's like, yo, this dude's a beast at this. He always gets open. Always. And I think that safety blanket was what obviously, they wanted with Bryce. But the trade-off I also get with them too is DJ's not a vocal leader from what we see. DJ's I'm gonna come to work and I'm gonna do my part. And I'm gonna be everything in the community and everything. But if you need somebody to get up and give a speech and say something, that ain't DJ. That ain't DJ. The way that Thielen has ran a tour for Carolina since he's come here is kind of like you would have never saw DJ doing that. Thielen's out there talking about the team all the time and all this stuff. So there was a true veteran, I think, presence that we needed in the wide receiver room. That, again, I wish I could have them both. But to bring in Thielen after having to lose DJ, I was like, you know what, I can do this. And that 19 on him in the blue just looks so nice, man.
I mean,
I have to get that, man.
That veteran leadership is part of the reason he got such a big contract.
Yeah, it really is.
I mean, that's as simple as it is. They just brought him basically to be the safety blanket, like you said, for Bryce, which hopefully he will be.
A couple other guys here that I think are worth mentioning. Shy Tuttle, who I've alluded to already. Somebody that can't rush the passer to save his damn life, but he's a fantastic run defender. Going to be more of a nose tackle almost for the Panthers
Derrick
here.
Brown to rush the passer from the middle more.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the big thing, right? He gives Derrick Brown a lot more flexibility, a lot more freedom. DJ Chark, who I'm interested in for now. I don't think he's in their long-term plans. He got a 1-year deal for like $5 million, something like that.
It has voided years on the back end.
Okay. Yeah. Because he's somebody that, at his peak in year, I think 2, like his second year in the league, everyone was like, oh, he could, he's got some Deshaun Jackson in him. He could be a really good deep threat. And since then, he just hasn't been able to find that consistency. And there's some guys behind him that I like a lot, namely Terrace Marshall, and then also Jonathan Mingo, who we'll talk about when we get to the draft. Like, I think he's a fine Band-Aid for your wide receiver too, like your deep threat for now. But I don't think he's anybody that's going to be with the Panthers long-term. I don't think he's in their long-term plans. And I think that's probably the best thing they could have. Just so Bryce has somebody he can air it out to for now that, can at least be okay at it.
They just need some speed.
Right, exactly.
I felt that way until 2 weeks ago. I felt exactly what you're saying until about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
In training camp, Bryce and DJ are hooking up constantly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're constantly hooking up, and for the exact reason you're saying, just the deep threat, the ability to separate, and bro kind of make some crazy contested catches. If you, we played DJ Chark twice last year in Detroit.
Yeah.
He killed us, and then he killed us when
Yeah.
he was with Jacksonville. Also, he had like a 3 touchdown game, so we kind of caught the bad end of some of his better games. So I felt like you said now. I thought he was a 1 year Band-Aid. I would still lean that he's a 1 year Band-Aid, but there's a part of me that says, what if TMJ becomes the odd man out? What
I
like
hope
what
not,
if
man.
I feel that way.
what if Chark becomes the one who gets the extension? Mingo, obviously you draft him, so he's gonna be around. Thielen is around. What
And
if
this,
Chark is what if Chark is the one who puts up the numbers? Because my most intrigued thing with him was like his average. It's like, it's 18, 19 yards a catch. Kind of like, all right. When Bryce has that type of guy, like, he did at Bama with Jamison Williams, kind of like, okay, he can get it to his guys when he stretched the field. So I feel like he is going to be highlighted. And there's a part of me that slowly started to be like, if TMJ keeps missing time and doesn't show up, like maybe Chark does have a way to steal the spot and get his contract. So,
I mean, I think the odd man out this year is going to be Shi Smith. I think he's going to ultimately end up being cut.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I could see the same thing happening with Terrace Marshall. If he doesn't elevate his game at least a little bit this season and can stay healthy, then I think he could be the odd man out next offseason.
Yeah. And that's definitely a possibility. I'm rooting against that because I love Terrace Marshall.
I love TMJ too.
But I mean, I'm not going to complain if DJ Chark works out for y'all. I like him too. He's fun. If he can figure out how to pull it together consistently, if that's been the big thing, he just needed a guy to bring it out of him, and Bryce is that guy, then I'm all for it. Hell yeah. That's great.
Health is a big concern with the wide receiver room, as
absolutely
an entire unit. None of these dudes can stay healthy. So we truly are two bad ankle twist away from being even worse than what we probably would want to be. So yeah, it can get thin really fast for us.
And then Deshaun Williams coming over from Denver, another signing that I think a lot of people have let go under the radar, but I think is going to be important because he's got that experience with Avero. He'll probably be more the 4-eye for this defense. So I think he'll have a pretty solid role there. And then a couple other names, Justin McCray, the offensive lineman, Andy Dalton, obviously a good backup, a good mentor. Like I know we brought it up earlier, but I love all of the quarterbacks that Bryce gets to work with. You've got Andy, you've got Frank Reich, you've got Josh McCown. Like that's a great 3 guys to work from because none of them are superstars. None of them. Andy Dalton was pretty damn good when he was with Cincy, but like none of them were superstars. None of them are that great, but they all have a ton of experience. They know the league. They're smart. They're not guys that have a bunch of really like inconsistent plays and inconsistent lapses and things like that. It's just none of them were ever really physically gifted, and they never had a great arm. They were never a highlight reel or anything like that. So they're good guys to learn from. They're good teachers. And Andy Dalton's another guy that if once he retires, I wouldn't be shocked if he wanted to get into coaching. I think he could absolutely do it. I think he's a great mentor. Like I've seen and heard some of the stuff that he's done with Justin Fields, for example, and I really like the mentorship he brought for him. So I think for Bryce it'll be a great guy to have in the building. Vernon Scott, the safety, wide receiver, Damiere Byrd, another former Bear, another guy that can take the top off a defense and really go down and make plays.
Also a former Panther. He was the last guy for us to get a return kick for a touchdown.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wasn't he?
I didn't know that.
Was he on the Super Bowl team?
I think he was. He was at the back end of the depth chart, but he had like our last kick return touchdown.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It was against Atlanta because he was the one this year playing for Atlanta that scored running up against there's a thorn sometimes, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the last couple guys here, interior defensive lineman Jalen Dalton, safety Eric Rowe, and then linebacker Camus Grugier-Hill. So I thought it was a really productive free agency class for the Panthers. I really like what they brought to the table. I really like the moves they made. But where they really made some big splash moves, in my opinion, was the NFL draft. So just off rip, and I am going to exclude Bryce from this because he's the easy answer. Who was your favorite pick the Panthers made?
Ooh.
Probably we haven't seen him play yet, but it's probably the guard.
Chandler Zavala.
Yes,
Zavala.
Zavala.
Answer.
Mainly because him and Icky were best friends in college.
Yeah.
And so if Icky's co-signing, Icky's been performing. So if he's giving him the co-sign, I love that pick. I think he was our 4th or 5th round pick.
Yeah, 4th round pick.
Fourth,
So I love
Fourth.
that. If he can get on the field.
I'm not gonna throw in my stock on the man yet. But until Israel Abanikanda put a spin move on him in the preseason game, it was Jamie Robinson. You know, I'm a safety dude, so I thought Jamie was gonna be the one who could threaten Chin or make him seem replaceable, but he ain't seeming to be having the best kind of time over here, man. So
Yeah, apparently he had a rough day at camp today. Also,
Yeah,
from what I saw on Twitter, he got cooked a little bit today. But
everybody was behind him with the ain't 144 better than me, and like, my brother, you might be letting us down on that one. You might be letting us down, man.
It's the preseason; it happens. Everyone's got their rookie moment, you know.
But it wasn't in the moment because I was just kind of like iffy on him. But Mingo's really starting to get to me the more that I watch him. Mingo was really starting to slowly work on me. Like, oh, okay, everybody says big dude from Ole Miss, he's going to be like AJ Brown and DK. So it's just kind of like the lazy thing to say. But the more that I watch him, I'm like, okay, not that he's going to be that, but I see why they took him and they drafted him. And more so because of the interviews I saw him afterwards. Just kind of just the mentality in. You know what I'm saying? You could look at traits and stuff, but I just loved his mentality and just kind of how he presents himself. So he's slowly starting to become that for me.
Yeah. I love Jonathan Mingo. He was probably, I'd say, my second favorite receiver in this class. I got lucky. The Bears drafted my favorite in Tyler Scott, but
okay.
Yeah. I mean that like going into it, Tyler Scott was my guy. I swear that's not a bias thing, but like, yeah, Jonathan Mingo's awesome. It's the lazy take to say he's kind of like AJ Brown and DK Metcalf, but it's also not wrong. Like, it's definitely a fair comparison, and it's a good comparison. You want him to be compared to freaks of nature that are absolutely dominating as X receivers in the NFL. And I think he can absolutely be that. I'm excited to see what's going to happen with him and Bryce long term. I think him and Bryce can be a fantastic duo. I guess the only other pick I can talk about for myself is Jamie Robinson, just because I don't like DJ Johnson. We'll talk about that in a second. Jamie Robinson, I did like, and he was the guy that I alluded to earlier when I said, maybe if Jeremy Chin is somebody that's, the odd man out, I can see a world where Jamie Robinson takes over for him. And I know maybe he's been disappointing in the preseason. I have a lot of faith in him. Just, I love me a high motor, aggressive, physical defensive back. And that is what he is. And he's somebody that has a ton of versatility. He played nickel corner. He played safety. He played linebacker. He was all over the place at Florida State.
Yep.
And, the only thing with him is like his ball production's kind of lacking. That's the big thing that stands out. And okay, if he can come up and make a play in the run, he can lock somebody down. That's all I need, right? Ball production's cool. You can learn how to catch. That's a focus thing. That's a concentration thing. He's got all the other cool stuff going on. And like Alex said, Chandler Zavala, I love him. I'm a big fan of Zavala. Just a smart, high character, high effort, high intensity offensive lineman, someone that I think any fan base will fall in love with once he hits the field in the NFL. Like, he's somebody that if he takes over for, it's killing me. The guard that's hurt right now, I cannot remember. Thank you. If he steps in and takes over for him early on, if he's not ready by week 1, I think he's going to be really hard to take off the field.
Not as facts.
Like, I have a lot of confidence in him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good problem to have, but
for once, it's a good problem to have that we might have a couple extra linemen that can help out, or 8 or 2. So
but like I said, DJ Johnson's kind of the blemish for me. Like, I confidently think the Panthers hit on 4 of their 5 picks. I really like 4 of the 5 guys they drafted. But DJ Johnson, for me, like, I get the appeal. He's really athletic. He's a big dude with a lot of quickness and speed and all that, and I get that. But there's a lot of things he doesn't have athletically, like his hips are really tight, and he's one of those guys that kind of like Brian Burns. He can't really convert his speed into power, which is concerning, especially because he's a bigger dude. He should be able to do that. So like his bull rush is non-existent. He also doesn't have a lot of moves. He's just kind of like, I'm going to try to loop around you, and if I can't, I'm kind of fucked. not a really good run defender. Like he's not
Trust
really
me,
instinctive.
you speaking with 99% of Panthers Twitter and
I'm
fans felt.
okay.
But we are now to the point that after the Camp Confidential stuff came out, this was an Evero pick. So,
Ooh, okay.
he's the one. He
That makes
wanted
me
it. So
like it
now,
a little bit more.
so that's so where you were at is
Right.
where you were at. And when we
Okay.
heard that, we got to where you at now.
Okay.
So we was kind of like, hold up. So we was like, hold up. So you cool? Like you asked for him, and he's all right, cool. So if you asked for him, this one's on your tab. Yeah, this one's on your tab. So you know, when he messed up, that's your boy. So we gonna come point to you.
I wish I would have known that. That
No,
makes
trust
me
me,
like that pick a little bit more.
You're expressing every concern that we all had. Like we was all kind of like, yo, what is going on here?
Yeah.
But when you found out that he was the one who wanted to make that pick,
right?
You know what I'm saying? So we're like, okay, cool. This one's on you, bro. Like we'll rock with him if you wanted him. So cool, we'll take it.
Exactly.
Yeah, because like straight up, I'll tell you, when I was scouting, I watched 40 different edge rushers.
Yeah.
He was ranked 40th. Like he
you probably was for the rest of us too. You know
yeah, like
I
was not a DJ Johnson guy, but yeah, like finding out he's an Evero pick, like that's man, I hate that. Now I can't hate it.
No, because it was kind of it almost seemed like every pick was handpicked by Rick, and I know it might not be that way for every team, but Campen wanted Zavala, Evero wanted DJ.
Yeah. Okay.
Sean Jefferson wanted Mingo. Like these were all their top rated guys that they wanted.
I like that.
So like for us now knowing that information is out, we're like, oh, well, y'all got no excuse if they come out because you guys got the guy that you wanted. You know, Sean Jefferson came out about Mingo. If this is what we want, Mingo's the guy that we want to take. And that's who they took. Campen was screaming his life away when they picked up Zavala. They left out that day 3 and they was like, we got to find a way to get him. And they found their way to get him. So every pick was intentional it was not like, oh, we just got to pick from scraps. Like, no, they got who they wanted. So if this draft class doesn't work out, they get to take 100% blame because they got who everybody wanted.
Interesting. Okay. Huh. I did not know that. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. I like that approach.
I know each team drafts differently. So that was kind of, trust me, we went through the Matt Rule era where his wife picked Chuba Hubbard. You know what I'm saying? So
really?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh
the reason why we got Chuba is because his wife texted him and she was like, hey, remember when Chuba ran for 200 on you? You should pick him up. And that's the reason why we got Chuba.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, hey, no disrespect to Matt Rule's wife. I'm sure she knows ball, but drafting players is really hard. And, you know, looking from the outside in, you know,
which gives us two different freedoms when it comes to two different views when it comes to the draft, because everything before really was Matt Rule final say, and Fitterer just being the hand that said, okay, if that's who you want, that's who you go get. This year, the perception and everything is given is who do we think is the best? Where can we maneuver? Oh, well, you want that guy? Then Fitterer being like, oh, well, we don't have to reach for him here. So we kind of felt like, or for me, I won't speak for you, Alex, felt like this was the first year we got to see Scott be the GM that he wants to be and actually working with Frank. Frank was like, hey, you know, I want my quarterback. I want my quarterback too. Let's go get him. All right, well, what receiver we want? Well, this is the guy that we want. And Steve Smith wanted Mingo. Like Steve Smith said Mingo too. So it was a two-way street. So
it feels like we're working as a team instead of just what Matt Rule wants.
Yeah.
Okay.
Matt Rule was running the Carolina Panthers as like a college organization. Now we're running like a professional team.
Yeah. It's crazy how that works, isn't it?
Yeah. Matt was which was crazy. You should never give that man that much power to begin with, but he was the end all be all to every choice that was made.
That's just unfortunate.
Isn't it crazy that he was almost the Giants head coach?
Yeah.
We stopped him from getting on a plane to go interview with the Giants.
Stupid. Out of pocket. Out of mind.
It's just crazy. Yeah. They flew to his house in Texas and basically locked him in his house and offered him a contract. That's how Matt Rule became our coach. That is crazy.
That's tough. That's tough.
It's a new era.
On the bright side, all of the Matt Rule antics, the bullshit, everything, all culminated in Bryce Young being a Carolina Panther.
Yeah, it did.
So it has to be worth it, right?
But so the good from Matt is Derek Brown, Jeremy Chin, J.C. Horn, Ike Ekwonu. There's some good that he did, but I always refer to a coach as a chef. You got all these ingredients and you can't cook. And
Mhm.
he just did not. He gave him some great products, and he was just a bad cook, and he did
Yeah.
not know what to do with it.
You got to suffer before you get the guy. Like before Cam, we had Jimmy Clausen.
Yeah.
So
Trust me, I know that all too well.
yeah, you do.
Yeah.
I really do. Ironically, Jimmy Clausen was a part of knowing that all too well because he was a Bear. He started at least 3 games in Chicago. I don't know why I remember that.
Yeah, I remember.
Listen,
now.
here, just to give you an idea of how tortured I've been as a Bears fan, right? Not to make it all about me, but because it's relevant to the Panthers. You guys know those immaculate grids that have been going around. The first one of those I did had the Bears and the Panthers on there. And I remember I looked at that. And this was after the DJ Moore trade. And the first player that popped into my mind for who played for the Bears and the Panthers was Jimmy Clausen. And I remember I looked back at that after I was done. And I was like, oh my God, this is a trauma response. This isn't normal. This isn't me trying to be different.
Because
this is
my
me
first
suffering.
Greg, Julius, Muhammad, those
There have been a
other
lot
guys.
of really good players that have played for both of our teams. But no, I went straight to the dog shit
Peanut.
Peanut.
Was Jeremy Shockey a Bear?
No.
Oh, I thought he was.
Are we sure?
Yeah, Peanut.
I am 99.9% positive he was never a Bear. I'll look it up, but I don't
thought
think
he was a Bear when we traded for him. For some reason, Jeremy Shockey's the first name that popped into my head, but that could be way off.
No, he was a Saint right before he was a Panther.
Oh, okay.
He went from the Giants to the Saints to the Panthers. Yeah. No, okay. Musha Muhammad, Julius Peppers, Greg Olson, DJ Moore. Like, there's been a lot of really good overlap. Peanut Tillman,
I just got a Muhammad signed jersey like yesterday.
Yeah. Oh, that's lit.
That's cool. Yeah.
I'm getting I definitely plan to get, because I'm getting my favorite player from every team. I want an orange Hester. I want an orange. That. Yeah, I want an orange.
Bro, you should check on Poshmark. That's where I ended up getting the Musa Muhammad signed jersey.
I got one of my homies I went to school here. He's a huge Chicago fan. He got me my Derek Brown signed jersey that I got. Okay. So he's trying to convince me now to make the trip with him up to Chicago for the Thursday night game. So
I'm going to the Atlanta one week 1.
So yeah, I'm trying to debate, like, man, that's dead in the winter, and I said to myself, I'm not going to no cold games. So
have you ever been to the bank?
Nah, not yet.
Every
time I've tried, life has told me no.
Okay, so, don't go when it's hot. It's miserable when it's hot. I went week 1 against the Jets, and I was so sunburnt that I looked like I had like 3rd-degree burns by the time we left.
Crazy. Damn,
it's miserable.
I promise you. Every time I've tried to make it, I stay in KC, Davis. If you don't know, I stay in KC. So every time I've tried to make my trip, like I had to go see family, it was just like up, but it's not during football season. Or I try to make my trip and life just says nope. So I'm like, dang. So that kills me.
I live in Virginia, like probably 2 hours away from Charlotte. So
my bro's
trying to get down there as often as possible.
Yeah, see, I live in Maryland, so I don't get a lot of Bears opportunities. I went to Bears, it would have been the Redskins at the time, Monday night a couple years ago, and that's the only game I've ever been to. But it was beautiful. Mitch Trubisky threw like 4 or 5 touchdowns that game.
That's what's up.
Like, I had a ton of fun. Yeah.
That's what's up.
You went to a good game.
Yeah, I picked a great game to go to.
One of Mitch's few.
Yeah, one of the few.
Yeah,
one of the very few.
It's my goal to visit every NFL stadium. And that's why we went up to Baltimore last year, and Baltimore Stadium is clean. I get to go to a lot of Chiefs games because a good amount of people in my family got season tickets, so I'm always making my way in there somehow. And their stadium is crazy, but yeah, I have plans to visit every stadium.
Yeah, that's how I'm getting to the Atlanta game. My girl's aunt and uncle are Falcons season ticket holders, and they invited me. So I was like, yeah, of course we'll come.
Hey, yeah, that's what's up. That's what's up.
Yeah.
But, all right, David, what we on? So we get ready to talk about the man now? Since we talked about the rest of the draft class, is it time to talk about the man, Bryce?
Go ahead. You got a franchise quarterback. Talk to
franchise. So for me, beyond the thought of Bryce himself, right? Mm-hmm. Just the fact that you have your head coach who picks his guy, it's like, okay, whatever happens the next couple years, you're 100% at. You get 100% of the blame or the credit. Like that's where I'm glad we start at, especially coming from Matt Rule, where it was like Teddy's. Like we were constantly changing. With like, no, y'all made the move to go get y'all guy. Everything you said in the beginning about Bryce and Frank's offense, you said I think Bryce is out of this quarterback class, the quarterback that was the match made in heaven for what he would want to see
For sure.
fulfilled in his offense. Bryce himself, and this is where I struggle. I tell you, I try to be honest with myself, really honest with myself. Because my homies asked me a question. They was like, if you could go back, even knowing the end result now, would you take Justin Fields at 9 and miss Bryce now? Or would you miss on Fields to have Bryce now? And I struggled for a very long time answering that question. But in that moment, I said, if they were both in the draft class together, I would take Fields. And the reason why, and this is just me being honest, the reason why I would take Fields is because, and this is from seeing the Cam year, I see Justin with the ability to have that type of year. I also see Justin with the mental makeup that I feel like I didn't see in Cam early on. I feel like Cam had it later, but I feel like Justin has it earlier, kind of just with his maturity level and his ability to read the game. A lot of people like to knock him for that. I don't think that's on him. Now, Bryce to me is this dude's gonna be top 10 quarterback regardless. Like, because there's no world where he isn't one that doesn't require him being injured. As long as he's on the field, he's going to be one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the NFL to me. Like, that's how I feel about him. Now, how high does that ceiling go is where I'm like, you said many like kind of pocket Mahomes, but Mahomes could roll out and throw the ball 60 yards downfield. Bryce could get about 35, 40 at that. You know what I'm saying? Like there is these physical limitations that keep him from that. But I also think on a mental makeup end, 2-3 years down the line, we're gonna be like, yeah, why did people make this more difficult than it was? Like I feel like people made taking Zach Wilson and Trey Lance more difficult than it was over Justin Fields. Like, why did we make this harder than it was? We kind of overanalyzed. I think we have the perfect combination going forward for what Carolina needs done, man. I really do.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I feel like you nailed that. Like you said, I think Bryce, regarding everything, as long as he doesn't get injured, will be a top 10 quarterback. Like, I'm very confident about that. Like, I think he is the perfect quarterback for Frank Reich to lead this team as long as he doesn't get injured. I feel very good about it. Like, I think any of the other guys you would have taken, so who you weren't taking Will Levis. So CJ basically was the other option, CJ Stroud. I just don't think he matches what Frank likes to do as much. So I like the Bryce pick from that standpoint.
In a broad picture stroke to me, I think at the end of, and I won't say after this year, but let's say in 2 years from now, I think the top 3 quarterbacks that are starting in the NFC right now should be Hurts, Field, and Young. I think when we get to the end of the 2024 season, it should be, these 3 are the top 3 quarterbacks in the division, in the conference. That's how I feel it should be from my view of the quarterbacks in the conference.
I mean, I agree.
I can't say I disagree either. Yeah, I love that.
Because if you name the top 10 quarterbacks, the only NFC one you're probably going to name is Jalen, right? And after that,
I mean, the only way I see that not being the case is if Atlanta or Tampa finds a way to draft Caleb Williams.
Okay, yeah, and that's Caleb, right? So Caleb's gonna work his way into there, and probably to an NFC team. But then in the NFC, big picture, likewise, the other quarterbacks is Derek Carr, Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, 3 guys who are kind of towards the end of their contract, also towards the back half of where they're at. Jordan Love, we don't know who he is. Baker Mayfield. Like when you look at the list of NFC quarterbacks, and you go, well, what 2 guys out of this list, or what guys can go up? You'd be like, Justin and Bryce.
Yeah.
And these 2, like when we get to the end of the 2024 season, it should be the best 3 quarterbacks in the NFC are Jalen, Bryce, and Justin. And those should be the top 3 dogs.
I agree.
I love that. Out of curiosity, though, I do want to ask, with those 3 quarterbacks, where do you think Kyler Murray fits in there? Because he's someone that's very polarizing.
I think Kyler should be a top 4 or 5 quarterback in the NFC. But I think people do. And it's almost in a simulator is what I feel with Caleb. I think people rely too much on his talent, moving and throwing the ball. and nobody's made him sit down and mentally know what he's doing instead of just doing it. Like I felt like all of his coaching has relied on the talent that the dude has, and nobody's like, hey man, we can't be doing this. You actually got to kind of go through some stuff. I don't think nobody, I try not to take too much into the reports, but there's too much of them. I don't really think, I don't think he is watching film like he probably should be. But I also don't think he comes from like where Jalen or Tua or Mac or Bryce, like these Alabama systems where it's like, no, you got to know what you're looking at instead of just throwing it.
Right.
Yeah.
I think there's a real chance he's in the AFC. I think he's going to get traded because I think they're going to be the worst team in football. And I think Caleb Williams is going to be an Arizona Cardinal.
Yeah.
And so I could see somebody in the AFC going to pick him up because I doubt the Cardinals would trade him in the NFC. So I could see him in the AFC. But, I mean, kind of like Vita said, I don't know if it's there mentally. Not like he's dumb, just does he care?
I get you. Yeah. And I mean, I'm a little bit higher on Kyler than that myself, but I understand where the concern comes from. I'm not blissfully ignorant to the situation. But I get it. I was, like I said, I was just curious because I feel like he's somebody that you either think is one of those top 3 quarterbacks in the NFC or you think is absolutely terrible and has no care for the game whatsoever. And there's hardly ever an in-between.
I've been trying for 2 years now to get Kyler Murray with Eric Bieniemy.
That would be wonderful.
Well,
I've been trying because I feel like both of them get viewed the same, and I feel like both of them could solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, yo, Arizona, y'all need to hire Eric. And now that Eric's in Washington, I'm like, okay, eventually when you move on from Ron and Sam, y'all should probably trade for Kyler and bring Kyler over to Washington. I've been trying to pair Eric B and Kyler together for 2 years now.
With Kyler, I'm not sure he wants to play football. I think he wanted to play baseball, and the money was too good in the football. And that's why he ended up going to football. It just doesn't seem like he cares. Like, he's incredibly talented, but he's given a franchise. He has the keys to the car, and he's just like driving down the road at like 20 miles per hour when he should be headed to a Super Bowl. Like, it's just confusing to me. I feel like his passion was baseball, and the money was too good with football for him to turn it down.
I could see that.
I mean, maybe. Yeah. I mean, that's neither here nor there. I was just kind of curious.
I don't feel like there's no, if you would have asked me last year or even now, like if we was just to pick quarterback straight up, I think the only quarterback in the NFC, like just as a quarterback that I would struggle taking, like I told people, I said Fields and Hurts is the 2 dudes who I think have the ceiling to be tops in the game. And then I was like, Kyler has the physical talent and capability to do everything, but I also don't think he has just like the intangible. Like I said, I wish Dak's mind could just go to Kyler Murray, and then we would be okay.
Quarterback, yeah,
and then you'd be cool, bro. Like we wouldn't have to worry about you. So that's just how like I feel about Kyler. I feel like he's gonna start to get underrated, and that's why I've been trying to pair him with Eric Bieniemy. Like you two need to get together so y'all can get this done.
Yeah, I like the idea of that a lot.
Me too.
But looking back at Bryce, obviously he's the man of the hour, the savior of the Panthers. I agree with Vita that the one thing I'm worried about with him is the arm talent, and not because I think it's bad by any means. It's just he doesn't have that Superman arm like guys like Mahomes or Josh Allen or Justin Herbert or even Justin Fields to a certain extent have, where every throw on the field is accessible to them.
Yeah.
But you look at all the quarterbacks in NFL history, how many of them really had that arm? Like historically, outside of the guys I just named, you've got like Brett Favre. I'm sure I'm missing somebody. That's just the first one that comes to mind. But you look at all these other fantastic quarterbacks that didn't have that: Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Tom Brady. You don't need that to be a fantastic quarterback. And then you look at the other issue that everyone has with Bryce Young. He's too small. And the big concern with quarterbacks that are too small is that they can't see over the line of scrimmage. Well, if you go and look at the numbers or if you turn on the tape, Bryce Young last year at Alabama was one of the best passers in the nation when it came to routes over the middle, like crossing routes, slants, anything like that. He was really fucking good at throwing them.
Yeah.
So there's no real like weakness to Bryce Young. Like maybe his small frame could get him hurt, which, God forbid, knock on wood. But that's like the only thing. You've got essentially a perfect quarterback, physically, mentally, everything.
And that's it. We're chalking it in terms of, this is from a fan base who watch Cam get absolutely abused with no roughing the passer calls. So we
Mhm.
we don't care for that stuff. Like we just like when people are concerned, but like we remember the treatment Cam got with all the abuse he used to take, and it's just the game. Like we all know, it's the game, and a lot of these quarterbacks who are getting hurt, it's honestly not even from them taking shots. There's a lot of stuff from them rolling out outside the pocket, and that stuff you chalk it to the game. I'm said you're right. I think this dude is said outside of size, perfect for what we need, what Wright wants in an offense. And I really do think the ceiling is the floor is very high. I'm still trying to ask myself how high is the ceiling? Like that's really what I'm
An
trying to ask
athletic Drew
myself.
Brees. That's the ceiling.
Yeah. That's really what I'm trying to ask
Drew
myself.
Brees. This might be taboo to say in a Panthers video, but like Drew Brees is a top 5 quarterback all time. You
No,
give
he
him
is.
a
He
little
is.
bit
He,
of
no, I
athleticism.
hated that.
Listen.
I hated that guy. I
That
hated that guy.
man us up from my childhood.
Yeah, he killed
I've
us.
been
So
watching
if you,
Drew Brees
Yeah,
carve
yeah.
my defense
Drew
up since I
Brees
was
is
yeah.
your Aaron Rodgers. Trust me.
no,
I
no, no,
get
no,
it.
no, no,
I
that's
know.
facts. And so
Except
you know
Drew
when you,
Brees was kind of likable as a person.
yeah,
That's the
no, that's
difference.
facts. No, that's facts. Yeah, so
Maybe not the
when you
end,
tell
but,
me,
you know.
if you're telling me at the end of this, when it's all said and done, that his career was on par with Drew, hey, look, man, this is a dub for me, and I'm gonna take it. Like
Yeah.
I'm absolutely gonna take it, man.
Yeah.
That's just how I feel.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely in that direction, enthused, and said, I mean, that's kind of the best way I think I could put like my overview of Bryce is by the time they get to the end of his second year, like he should be one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the conference.
Yeah.
Like that's the only thing I want to see this year is just show me flashes that you can be great.
Yeah.
I don't need
for
us
sure.
to go to a Super Bowl this year. I just need you to show me that you are the franchise quarterback that we traded up for.
Yeah.
And I think you will.
Yeah. And I think Alex hit the nail on the head saying athletic Drew Brees. I love that comp for Bryce because you look at a lot of the dialogue around him, and I saw a lot of people trying to give him Kyler Murray comparisons because they're both short and athletic. And I think that's
Kyler got a rocket.
No.
Kyler got
Right.
a rocket.
Right.
Kyler can let that thing go everywhere. Kyler
Kyler's
got a
fast as
rocket.
hell.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Kyler's a lot more athletically gifted, but when it comes to the mental side of things, Bryce is a lot more gifted.
Yep.
And the reason I bring that up, I brought this up when we were talking about the Cardinals on one of these videos, was a lot of people were using that as a way to slander Kyler Murray and Bryce Young at the same time. And it's like, no, you're just making yourself look dumb because the only similarity between these two is that they're short.
Yep.
Like, genuinely speaking, and I know this is incredibly high praise for a dude who hasn't taken a snap in the NFL yet, he's a lot closer to Drew Brees than he is Kyler Murray.
You know, like, so on a physical end, I don't think Bryce could ever roll out left and throw the bomb like he did to DeAndre
Probably
Hopkins.
not.
You know what I'm saying?
No.
Because Kyler does that on a normal. Oh, I'm going left. Let me lob this up. I don't think Bryce could physically make that pass. And I think a lot of people forget Kyler can. Like you said, it's Bryce's gift is the mental makeup part of it, on top of the accuracy and the anticipation that he has. When I go back and I watch him, I'm like, okay, he did get that ball 50 yards downfield, but he threw it early. And you also see him kind of like really leaning into his throws too. Like, I got to get it out there. And sometimes it looks like it's kind of fluttering in the air, like, oh, he really let it go early so he could get there in time.
Yeah.
So it's, so
Granted, he's going to get stronger. So hopefully that will improve a little bit. But y'all are right. He doesn't have the arm talent to, I mean, like the cannon, like a Josh Allen or somebody like that. But mentally, he's there way more than other guys are, especially coming in as a rookie. Like the fact that he already picked up the entire playbook and was named the starter before we even had preseason week 1 is very impressive to me.
Yeah. And when you brought up CJ Stroud, I think that's where the difference relied was Stroud obviously physically gifted. I think he's probably one of the purest passers we've seen come out in a while. With the way just physically it looks, the tools of it, like how like the act, like all of that. But again, I do think there is a mental aspect that really did set Bryce apart from what he can do, checking everything. I think CJ, who I also think highly of, will be more a product of the OC. Like I feel like CJ could be more closer to Jared Goff. That's how I feel about him.
Yeah,
I feel like if you call the right play and you need the ball to go somewhere, he's gonna get it there. But if you need him to start doing too much, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, to me, CJ Stroud's floor is Jared Goff and his ceiling's like Dak Prescott, right?
Yeah.
Like I think that's kind of a fair range for CJ Stroud, and I agree. Whereas Bryce Young, again, it's like his floor is, I don't know, some sort of top 15 quarterback, and his ceiling is Drew Brees with legs. I think that's a little disrespectful to Kirk. I as a Bears fan, I think Kirk's a little bit better than that. But either way, Kirk. Yeah, I mean, Kirk gets the job done, right? Like that's what matters.
Does he?
But
he does, bro. He
in
really
the regular season, in the playoffs. I mean, to be fair, last year, I mean, that's a whole other debate.
That was one of the fakest teams we've ever seen last year.
Yeah, but it was because it had a historically bad defense. Like that defense was atrocious.
I'm just saying. I understand that, but you also have the best wide receiver.
I'll put it this way. Kirk in that offense, I don't want to say Kirk in that offense. Justin Jefferson in that offense featuring Kirk Cousins are the reason why they made it as far as they did.
Okay, good point.
Like Kirk does enough to set up Justin Jefferson to be great. That's all he needs to do.
I'm being too harsh on Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. I'm not arguing Kirk's like elite or anything, but he's closer to top 10 than he is like middle of the pack, I think.
Yeah.
True.
But either way.
I had him at 12 this year.
Yeah, and I think that's about right.
Yeah,
11, 12, somewhere in there, yeah. But piggybacking, or not piggybacking, but completely shifting gears from that. Moving into expectations for next season, and I've got one last question. It's kind of a two-parter. First of all, what are your record predictions for the Panthers? You can say, your actual prediction, like a straight-up record, or you can give me a floor and a ceiling. Either one's valid. And
floor?
Then outside...
go ahead. No, go ahead and finish the question.
Yeah, and then outside of Bryce Young, because that's the obvious answer, everybody's excited to see him. Who are you most excited to watch next year?
Floor is 7 and 10.
Okay.
Floor. I cannot allow you with an entirely on paper what we talked about, a upgraded coaching staff and upgraded quarterback to be any worse than we were last year. You're not allowed to do that. Like you're just not for me. You're not allowed to be any worse. The division is not tough. Everybody and their mama knows that. So you got 6 opportunities to steal 4 games to try to make it easy on yourself. 7 and 10 is the absolute floor for me because Bryce is better than every quarterback that was on the roster last year, and this coaching staff is better than the entire coaching staff last year. So when you upgrade those 2 things, I'm just gonna expect your team to be better as it is. Like I expect that. The highest I could give Carolina was a 10-win team. Was a 10-win. If fortunate enough for me, like I feel like if we could get to the bye week at 3-3, that's a win. Coming out of the bye week is where it's like it's Houston, it's Chicago, it's Indianapolis. Some guys who were kind of around us who were like, okay, some of our contemporaries before. So I'm kind of like, all right, there's some 50-50 games in there that could happen, but 10 wins was the most I could give. And the person that I really am most excited to see play is JC Horn. Because for my sake, knowing what Evero did for Pat Surtain and the guy who wanted Pat over JC, I'm kind of like, all right, common denominator, you got your guy. And what he did in the Seattle game, the DK, and what JC's impact was like when he was gone against Tampa was like, all right, bro, we really need you, man. Like, we really need you. And there should be no reason, you said it early, he's between 6 to 15. When I see enough of him to be like, he really should be in the top 5, but his availability and stuff like that, I can't put him there. But we should get to the end of the year and they should be like, oh, yeah, we have been sleeping on JC as a whole and what he could be. So that's what I got.
Yeah, for me, I agree. I think it's 7 wins. You have to. If you don't, it's a failure. Because we've upgraded arguably every aspect of the team. And then I think I'm going to go one more win than you said. I'm going to go with 11. I think best case 11 wins. And probably this might be weird because he might not even play that much, but I think it's Mingo for me. Because if Mingo can turn out to be a star wide receiver, not a superstar, but if he can be a great wide receiver for us, that fills a need very quickly that we don't have to necessarily address in the draft next season or in free agency if he shows flashes of being great this year.
And I think that's the other reason when we talked about TMJ and Mingo was I think Mingo started to separate himself because his ability to run block. TMJ's, we don't know him to run block. and
Yeah.
Mingo gets active in it. So I think that's what separated them in the depth chart.
I also think we're winning the division. So
Definitely possible.
Yeah.
Like Vita said, there's not a lot of comp. It's
the
not like
people
it's
that
not.
are telling me that Atlanta's going to win the division, I just don't understand at all. I don't get it.
I'm not understanding Atlanta. I fear the Saints the most this year.
I
For what they
agree.
could be. I'm really trying to understand why so many people are sold on Atlanta.
I don't
I
understand. They
think
don't
it's
have a
the run
quarterback.
game is the big thing.
Yeah, it's
And you to go with the quarterback point, because I'm somebody that does like Atlanta.
They also have no defense.
Their defense has the pieces and to do something. Now, a lot of it's projecting. That's the big thing with Atlanta. They're doing a lot of projecting.
See, I'm terrified of Atlanta the second they get a quarterback. Like if they somehow find a way to get like Drake May next year, I'm terrified.
Sure. The thing with
I'm not high on
Atlanta,
Arthur Smith though. I don't like Arthur Smith. I don't know where the Arthur Smith love is
well,
coming
see, that's the difference. I really like Arthur Smith.
from.
And
Okay,
I
cool.
think the big reason for that is his run game, because like I said, that's my thing. And
Yeah.
oh my God, I could talk about his run game for hours. I'm not going to, but I could. Um, and his offense in terms of passing is very, very simple. Like it's very much the stereotypical we're going to run the ball. And then when teams start to commit to running the ball, we're going to run a little play action. We're going to take some deep shots, a lot of bootlegs, things like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big thing with Ritter is people saw him last year do a little bit. Like there were some flashes of like him being able to hit an open receiver. And that's kind of all you need to do in that offense.
No, you're right.
Be like,
You're right.
okay. And then the defense, like I said, it's a lot of projecting, a lot of expecting guys like Arnold Ebiketie or Zach Harrison to really step up on the defensive line. You have Grady Jarrett. They added Calais Campbell. The secondary, you're expecting AJ Terrell to take a step back towards what AJ Terrell should be. You add Jesse Bates. Like there's talent on the defense. It's just projecting. So
you're right.
for people like myself who do like the Falcons, and I'm not saying I think the Falcons are better than the Panthers. I think I would actually put them on par. I won't lie, going into this, I would have said the Falcons were a little bit better. But after having this conversation we've had and reconsidering some things, I think they're about
you can
even.
say it.
No, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong.
I promise I'm not switching up to be defensive. I promise you, I have legitimately had some things changed in my mind.
Don't get me wrong. Even the Bucks, any team could win this division.
Now, see, the Bucks, I wouldn't.
This is where I want us to remember. You said there's a lot of projecting. The Bucks actually have the players who actually accomplished, minus quarterback and head coach,
and
the projection that a lot of teams. And that's the big thing. Outside of Todd Bowles and or Baker Mayfield, Kyle Trask, who are the question marks? The rest of that team is not a question mark outside of injury.
Well, they have no running back.
No.
Yeah, I like Rashad White.
I mess with Rashad White. I don't think he's top tier, but I mess with Rashad White enough.
Yeah, no, he's good enough.
Yeah,
he's one of those guys that, again, much like Miles Sanders, I think could be productive.
Here's my thing about Tampa's going to be good enough to just mess up somebody's season, but not make any noise. Like they're going to win like 6 or 7 games.
No, their schedule is hard, bro.
I know that's what I'm saying. They're going to mess up somebody winning the division in another, like in the AFC, because they're going to sneak by and win a game in like week 12 that they shouldn't win.
I would fear if Kyler was to make his way over there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If Kyler was if Kyler was to be a Buck or, you know what I'm saying, a Falcon at the end of the year.
Atlanta or the Bucks get a quarterback, I'm terrified. But crazy. Until they do.
Yeah, because I mean, listen, we're hearing reports that Baker can't even beat out Kyle Trask at camp. Like it's close. If it's close between those two quarterbacks, that team is fucked.
See, I think they're trying to lose. I think they're in the Caleb Williams sweepskate.
Which is okay. Like, no, you're right. Which is if they do it right. Yeah, if they do it right, they'll sit down with Mike Evans and Vita Vea and be like, "Hey, y'all, chill this year. We don't go get our guy next year."
I don't understand. Atlanta should tank. They should figure out a way to get Caleb Williams. Because if you get Caleb Williams in Atlanta, you're the best team.
Why would you want to unleash that upon our conference?
Because
I'm going to tell y'all. I'm going to tell y'all. I'm a little more reserved on Caleb than a lot of people.
I mean, I'm a Drake May fan over Caleb Williams, to be honest.
I'm just going off projections. I haven't watched much Caleb Williams, so I can't say.
Tell me when he plays a good defense, and then I'll.
He said something after one. You can't keep losing to Utah. And not only losing, but the way
when Utah's your best defense, there's a problem.
And then what he said after the Tulane game, where he said, "Well, there was nothing to play for," I was like, "Oh, I didn't like that.
Yeah, that's
I
not
didn't like
good.
that. Yeah, I didn't like that." So I was just like, it's not a, it's more Kyler to me, and I think Kyler was better at that time.
And
than
people are
he
going to
is.
be down on Drake May just because of Mitchell Trubisky.
Yeah,
Because he was a high quarterback from North Carolina. He got taken and he was a bust. And that's why people are not going to like Drake May.
The difference is, though, Trubisky never had any hype or looked good.
Yeah, Trubisky made no sense.
No. Yeah.
Hey, you got a quarterback.
so I just
It
felt like
was all worth it, but oh my god.
so I put it like this. I just felt like on my end, the Mitch pick was just being like, you know what, we got a good feeling about the guy. We're gonna go for it. That's just kind of what it felt like on my end on the outside.
I mean, to me, yeah, it was like, okay, this Mahomes guy, too raw. We don't think we can develop him. Deshaun Watson, he won a Heisman. Very glad they didn't make the pick in hindsight. But in the moment, I don't know. It's tough to justify it. I mean, I agree. If I'm all for going to get your guy, even if the analysts don't like it, even if I don't agree with the pick, like hearing about DJ Johnson being a Veros guy. I love that. I'm all for it. Trust your gut. Trust your guys.
I mean, that changed my
Unless you're
entire
Mike
mind on
Mayock.
the DJ pick. I was like, I hate this pick. And then the second I heard he wanted him, I was like, oh, okay.
It like I said, in a lot of the ways that we've seen this front office and the coaching staff work was they got everybody that they was aiming to get. Like the people who they wanted to get, they got. So that's why I hold them to a y'all got all the people y'all wanted to get. Nah, y'all got no excuses. So you don't get to come out here and have 3-4 wins. Like you guys got the people who you think could fulfill your game plan, could fit your system, could fit your culture. You guys have no excuse. So that's how I feel towards it.
For sure. Now for me, for a record prediction for the Panthers, I got to agree kind of with both of you. 7-10, 11 wins, somewhere in there. Makes a ton of sense. This is a team that got better. I would say they got better everywhere except for got better or at least stayed the same where they were already good, right? Because like they didn't get better at defensive. Well, no, they did get better at defensive. I'm just talking out of my ass. Point is, this team got better as a whole. The only place where they objectively did not get better was wide receiver. And even then, I feel like they did a good enough job at filling out what they needed to. So I think 7-10, maybe 11 wins is pretty reasonable. The player I'm most excited to watch, and I know he's kind of gotten ragged on and thrown out in this episode, is Terrace Marshall Jr. I am a big fan of his. Kid's only, 23 years old. Got a ton of upside in terms of athleticism. And I know you bring in Jonathan Mingo and it starts to look like, But, you get a world where, Adam Thielen's not going to be around forever. And DJ Chark also won't be around forever. Imagine you get a Twin Towers situation where you've got Jonathan Mingo on one side, Terrace Marshall on the other, and then you figure out what's going on in the slot. Like that's a sick receiver room.
That's the hope is just that. You know what I'm saying? But again, it's at the end of the day, it is hope. It is
no, for sure. It's total projection. I think getting to work with Bryce is going to be huge for him. I think if he can stay on the field and take advantage of his opportunities, that he can be, a really good piece for this receiver room. Like you can never have too many good receivers. And I'm really excited to see what he's going to do this year.
And that'll help TMJ out too, because you're actually going to play with a guy this year that you're going to play with next year, and you get to play with the year after. So you said there is going to be those growing pains and the learning of each other. And so these guys Terrence Marshall Jr. has been having Sam Baker and all these other dudes throw at him, man. So he's about to be like, hold up, he's putting it right here on me. Like, all right, cool. So you're right. You're right.
Yeah. I mean, that poor guy, he's had a hell of a run. Like he was on that LSU team that was so good. And then everybody left and it was just him. And it tanked his draft stock. He went from a highly recruited player. And then he goes to Carolina. And like you said, plays with all these bad quarterbacks. He hasn't really had a fair shot yet. And I think Bryce Young gives him that. Also have to shout out Tommy Tremble now that I know he's playing fullback. Even if he plays 2 snaps at fullback this year, God damn it, I will have both of those snaps saved in my memory. I will post them on Twitter. I will post them on TikTok. I will spread whatever I have to do to get Giovanni Ricci out of that fucking fullback job in Carolina. Because I like the Panthers. I want to root for the Panthers, but I can't root for them if they have Giovanni Ricci at fullback.
No. I got you.
It hurts me. But that being said, I think that about wraps this up here, especially because I got to go record something else here right after I'm done. But that being said, before we head out, if you guys would like to plug anything, by all means, the floor is yours. Whatever you say, I will put in the description down below for people to go check out.
You want to go ahead, Alex? You can.
Yeah, it's MrAlexHarden on everything, literally everything. So there you go. Go ahead, Vita.
VitaVanPelt on TikTok, TTE AIGA. It's a YouTube link. That's where we do. We'll be going live on Tuesdays during the NFL season. That's when we get together and do our live stuff together, man, and recap the week and everything, man. It's definitely been great being here with y'all, man. Enjoyed the conversation, man. I love it.
I'm glad you had fun. Like I said, all their links will be down in the description below, as well as my links. You can check me out, Miller Football or Miller Football _ on TikTok.
Question for you, go, David.
Twitter.
Question. I got a question for you, go.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Give me a Bryce Young projection. Do you think his rookie year, because a lot of people is down on him, but they was high on him rookie year. Bryce Young ceiling or floor on his rookie year? A Trevor Lawrence floor or Mac Jones rookie year ceiling? Where do you think Bryce Young ends in a rookie year podium? People thought Mac was that dude after his rookie year, right? With the 20-something touchdowns. Better than Mac?
I think he's going to be better than Mac.
Mac was, what, 20-something touchdowns, right under 4,000, playoff, wild card?
Because the difference is Bryce is a real quarterback.
You don't like Mac?
No,
you don't mess with Mac?
Mac's a bum.
Yeah, Mac's not.
See, I don't think Mac is at least...
he's dirty. He's a dirty little
so
bitch.
I know he's dirty, but I don't think Mac is like... I view Mac as like the line of the future quarterbacks.
They're definitely
like
trying to replace
that.
They just want to get him.
And I get where you're heading with that, and I think a lot of people hold that opinion, so I'm not going to knock you for it. But me personally, I think he's below that. I think he's more of like how do I want to put this? I think he's somebody that, ideally would kind of bounce around from team to team as a bridge quarterback, kind of like the Undertaker right before a team drafts a quarterback. I don't think he's somebody you want starting long term. Like Alex said, they're trying to replace him. They were benching him for Bailey fucking Zappi last year. You've got Malik Cunningham. Who knows? He might take over a quarterback.
Hey, he's nice. Year. I don't know why people so sleep on him.
I'm coming around on Malik. I wasn't high on him.
Mac, because Mac people forget Mac had a really good rookie year overall.
For sure.
He really did. Like right under 4K, 20 plus TDs, a playoff game. So I was kind of like, I asked people, do you think Bryce will get closer to Mac, or is he going to be closer to Trevor's rookie year?
I'm going to say Bryce has 3,800 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 12 picks.
I'm terrible projecting stats, so I'm not going to add on to that, but that seems fair.
I just gave him the overall over-under of last year's quarterback room for Carolina. 19 touchdowns, 16 picks. So you got to give me more than more than 19 touchdowns and less than 16 picks.
And I think he will do that. I'm fully confident in saying he will.
Yeah. I said as long as you can beat out Carolina's room last year, you're all right with me, man.
In fact, I'll say something crazy right here. It wouldn't shock me if at the end of next year we hear Bryce Young in top 10 conversations already. Yeah. I think Bryce is going to be awesome.
I hope so.
My overall projection is after the 2024 season, Jalen, Justin, and Bryce should be the top 3 quarterbacks in the NFC.
And I hope you're right, because that's a beautiful top 3. I love all 3 of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I was saying, make sure to check me out everywhere at Miller Football, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff will be in the description. And then also my podcast, which coincidentally I'm about to go record. It's called Run the North. It's an NFC North podcast by NFC North fans, but we do talk about sports as a whole. We're not just stuck in the NFC North, I promise. We're talking about everything. They talk about other sports. I sit there and twiddle my thumbs while they do that, because I am not a basketball guy. I'm not a baseball guy. I'm a football guy through and through. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure
you got to come holler at us before the Thursday night game, man.
Oh, I will.
We got to get together for the Thursday night game and do this, all right?
Absolutely.
Bet.
Absolutely.
Let's get it.
But yeah, to everyone out there watching, please leave a like down below. Helps out a ton. I appreciate the support, all that good stuff. And subscribe down below. We've got more of these coming out throughout the rest of August, maybe into early September. I don't know. I'm bad at scheduling. But to everyone out there watching, and of course the 2 gentlemen joining me here today, I hope you all have a wonderful day, evening, night, afternoon, whatever time of day it is for you. I hope you enjoy it, because you're all wonderful people and you deserve it.